The crowd at the United Center thought they knew everything about Michael Jordan. They were wrong. When an elegant woman in a red coat walked down the arena steps that March evening, she carried with her a 25-year-old secret that would change the basketball legend's life forever. What happened next left 21,000 fans speechless and proved that some love stories are worth waiting a lifetime to complete. The roar of 21,000 voices filled the United Center like thunder. Michael Jordan sat in his usual courtside seat, his eyes locked on the game. The Chicago Bulls were down by 12 points to the Los Angeles Lakers, and the crowd was getting restless. Jordan leaned forward, his hands gripping the armrests of his leather chair. Even at 61, he still felt every missed shot like a punch to the gut. Basketball would always be in his blood. The bright lights of the arena made his championship rings sparkle as he pointed at the court. "Defense," he shouted, though his voice was lost in the noise. The March wind outside rattled the windows of the arena, but inside it was warm and electric. Fans wore red jerseys with his number 23. Kids held signs that read, "Jordan is the GOAT." Camera crews moved along the sidelines like busy ants. Jordan checked his watch. It was 8:30 on a Friday night. The game had been going for an hour, but it felt like minutes to him. Time always moved differently when basketball was involved. Behind him, fans whispered and pointed. They always did. After all these years, people still treated him like a living legend. He had learned to ignore most of it. But tonight felt different somehow. The Lakers called a timeout. Players jogged to their benches, sweat dripping onto the polished wooden floor. The arena's big screen showed highlights from earlier games. Jordan relaxed slightly in his chair. That's when he saw her. A woman in an elegant red coat was walking down the aisle. She moved with grace, her silver-streaked hair catching the arena lights. She was tall and carried herself like someone who had once been very important. Jordan felt his chest tighten. Something about her seemed familiar, but he couldn't place it. The woman found her seat 3 rows behind him and sat down calmly, as if she belonged there. Around the arena, other fans began to notice her too. She was beautiful in a timeless way, and she looked expensive. In Chicago, people noticed when someone looked like they didn't belong. But this woman seemed comfortable, like she had been in places like this before. The game started again. Jordan tried to focus on the court, but his eyes kept drifting backward. Who was she? Why did seeing her make his heart race? The Bulls scored 6 quick points. The crowd jumped to their feet, screaming and waving towels. Jordan stood clapping and shouting. For a moment, he forgot about the mysterious woman. But when he sat back down, he felt eyes on him. Not the usual stares from fans or reporters. This was different. This was personal. Jordan turned around slowly. The woman was looking right at him. Their eyes met across the 3 rows of seats between them. Jordan's face went completely pale. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. The noise of the arena seemed to fade away until all he could hear was his own heartbeat. The woman was Elena Vasquez. He would recognize those dark eyes anywhere, even after 25 years. Elena gave him a small nod, the kind of greeting you might give an old friend, but her eyes were serious, almost sad. She didn't smile. Jordan's hands started to shake. He gripped his armrest tighter, his knuckles turning white. 1,000 memories crashed through his mind at once. Barcelona, art galleries, long walks by the ocean, letters that stopped coming. The crowd around them sensed something was happening. Fans began looking back and forth between Jordan and Elena, trying to understand the tension. Phone cameras started pointing their way. Jordan turned back to the game, but he wasn't seeing it anymore. His mind was spinning. What was Elena doing here? How had she found him? Why now, after all these years of silence? The Lakers scored again. The Bulls called another timeout. Jordan usually loved timeouts because he could study the players' techniques. Tonight, the break in action just gave him more time to think. Elena had been the most important person in his life for 3 weeks in 1999. Then she had disappeared completely. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. Like she had never existed. But here she was, sitting behind him at his favorite place in the world. She looked older, of course, but still beautiful. Her hair was shorter and had silver streaks now. She wore simple jewelry and clothes that probably cost more than most people's cars. Jordan felt a tap on his shoulder. A security guard leaned down. "Mr. Jordan, is everything okay? You look like you saw a ghost." Jordan nodded quickly. "I'm fine. Just watching the game." But he wasn't fine. His heart was beating so fast he thought other people might hear it. His palms were sweating. He felt like a teenager again, nervous and confused. The game clock showed 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The Bulls had cut the lead to 4 points. The crowd was on their feet, sensing a comeback. Jordan forced himself to watch the action. A young Bulls player made a 3-point shot from the corner. The arena exploded with joy. Jordan stood and clapped, but his movements felt mechanical. During the celebration, he glanced back again. Elena was still watching him. This time, she slowly reached into her purse and pulled out something small. She placed it on her lap where Jordan could see it. It was a photograph. Even from 3 rows away, Jordan could tell it was old and faded. The edges were worn from being handled many times. Elena held the photo so Jordan could see it clearly. His breath caught in his throat. It was a picture of the two of them from Barcelona, taken on their last morning together. In the photo, Jordan was sleeping peacefully while Elena watched him with love in her eyes. Jordan remembered that morning perfectly. They had stayed up all night talking about their future together. Elena had promised to wait for him. He had promised to come back to Spain. Neither promise had been kept. The Bulls scored again. The crowd roared. Jordan sat frozen in his chair, staring at the photograph that represented the biggest regret of his life. Elena carefully put the photo back in her purse. Then she did something that made Jordan's heart stop completely. She stood up from her seat and started walking down the steps toward him. 21,000 people watched the greatest basketball player who ever lived turn pale as a ghost. They didn't know why, but they could feel that something huge was about to happen. Elena reached the edge of his row. Security guards moved to stop her, but Jordan held up his hand. "It's okay," he said quietly. "Let her through." The crowd fell silent. Everyone sensed they were about to witness something extraordinary. But nobody, not even Jordan himself, could have guessed what would happen next. Elena stopped 3 feet away from Jordan's chair. She looked down at him with those same dark eyes that had haunted his dreams for 25 years. "Hello, Michael," she said softly. Jordan stood up slowly, his legs shaky. The arena held its breath. "Elena," he whispered. And in that moment, with thousands of people watching, the greatest basketball player in history realized that his most important game was just beginning. 25 years earlier, the summer heat in Barcelona made everything shimmer like a dream. Michael Jordan stepped out of his hotel and onto Las Ramblas, the famous walking street that cut through the heart of the city. Palm trees lined the wide pathway, and street artists painted portraits for tourists. Jordan was 36 years old and tired. He had retired from basketball 6 months earlier, but his agent had talked him into this charity exhibition game. Just one game, his agent had said, for the kids in Spain. Now Jordan wondered why he had agreed. He was supposed to be relaxing, but everywhere he went, crowds followed him. Kids screamed his name in Spanish. Adults asked for autographs. Even in Spain, he couldn't escape being Michael Jordan. His marriage to Juanita was falling apart. They fought constantly now. She said he cared more about basketball than his family. Maybe she was right. Jordan didn't know how to be anything except a basketball player. "I need some air," he had told his bodyguard that morning. "I'm going for a walk, alone." The bodyguard had not been happy, but Jordan was the boss. Now Jordan walked down a narrow side street, away from the crowds. The old buildings rose up on both sides like stone guardians. Flower boxes hung from tiny balconies. The smell of fresh bread drifted from small bakeries. For the first time in months, Jordan felt peaceful. He stopped in front of a small art gallery. The sign read Galeria Vasquez in elegant letters. Through the window he could see colorful paintings hanging on white walls. A woman with long dark hair was talking to visitors inside. Jordan had never cared much about art, but something drew him in. Maybe it was the quiet calm of the place. Maybe it was curiosity. He pushed open the glass door. A small bell chimed as he entered. The gallery was cool and peaceful. Soft jazz music played from hidden speakers. The paintings on the walls showed scenes from Barcelona, the beach, old churches, people dancing in the streets. "Can I help you?" a voice asked in perfect English. Jordan turned around. The woman with dark hair was walking toward him. She was about 28, tall and graceful. She wore a simple black dress and silver jewelry. Her eyes were the deepest brown Jordan had ever seen. "I was just looking," Jordan said. "These paintings are beautiful." The woman smiled. "Thank you. I'm Elena Vasquez. This is my gallery," Michael Jordan said, not giving his last name. Elena looked at him carefully. Something flickered in her eyes. But she didn't say anything about recognizing him. "Are you visiting Barcelona?" she asked. "For a few days. I'm here for work." "What kind of work?" Jordan hesitated. "Sports?" he said finally. Elena nodded and began showing him around the gallery. She explained each painting with passion and knowledge. Jordan found himself really listening, something he rarely did anymore. "This one is my favorite," Elena said, stopping in front of a painting of the Barcelona beach at sunset. The artist painted it after falling in love for the first time. "See how the colors seem to glow?" Jordan stared at the painting. The oranges and pinks did seem to glow, like they had their own light inside. "It's amazing," he said. "I've never really understood art before." "Art is like love," Elena said softly. "You don't need to understand it. You just need to feel it." They talked for 2 hours. Elena told him about growing up in Barcelona, about opening the gallery when she was 25, about her dreams of showing Spanish art around the world. Jordan told her about Chicago, about missing the simple things in life, about feeling lost without basketball. He didn't mention that he was famous. For the first time in years, someone was talking to him like a regular person. "Would you like to get dinner?" Jordan asked, as the gallery was closing. Elena paused. "I don't usually go to dinner with strangers." "I'm not a stranger anymore," Jordan said. "I'm Michael, the guy who doesn't understand art but wants to learn." Elena laughed. It was a musical sound that made Jordan's heart skip. "Okay, Michael, who doesn't understand art. I know a place." She took him to a tiny restaurant hidden in the Gothic quarter. They sat at a table for two in a corner, surrounded by candles and old stone walls. Elena ordered for both of them in rapid Spanish. "What did you order?" Jordan asked. "Trust me," Elena said. The food was incredible. Jordan had eaten the finest restaurants in the world. But this simple meal tasted better than anything he remembered. Maybe it was the company. They talked until midnight. Elena told stories about her childhood, about learning to paint from her grandmother, about the day she decided to open her own gallery. Jordan found himself sharing things he had never told anyone. His fears about retirement, his loneliness despite being surrounded by people, his dream of just being normal. "What's normal?" Elena asked. "Walking down the street without being recognized. Having conversations like this one. Feeling like myself instead of feeling like a character everyone else created." Elena reached across the table and touched his hand. "Tonight you're just Michael. Tomorrow you can decide who you want to be." Over the next 3 weeks, Jordan returned to the gallery every day. Elena showed him all of Barcelona, the hidden beaches where locals went swimming, the markets where her grandmother had shopped, the roof of the Sagrada Familia, where you could see the whole city. Jordan had never felt so alive. With Elena, he laughed at simple jokes. He tried to paint and was terrible at it. He learned Spanish words and forgot them immediately. He felt like a young man again. Elena didn't care that he was Michael Jordan. She had figured it out after the second day, but it didn't change how she treated him. To her, he was just Michael, the American who was learning to see beauty in small things. They fell in love the way people do in movies. Fast and completely, Jordan forgot about Chicago, about his problems, about everything except the way Elena smiled when she saw him each morning. "I could stay here forever," he told her one evening as they watched the sunset from Park Güell. "Then stay," Elena said simply. But they both knew he couldn't. Jordan had a life in Chicago. He had children who needed him. He had business deals and commitments. Reality was waiting for him back home. On his last night in Barcelona, they walked along the beach. The Mediterranean Sea whispered against the sand. Street lamps made golden circles on the dark water. "I'll come back," Jordan promised. "Give me a few months to sort things out and I'll come back." Elena stopped walking. She turned to face him, her eyes serious in the moonlight. "Don't make promises you can't keep, Michael." "I mean it," Jordan said. "I've never felt like this before. I need you in my life." Elena kissed him then, soft and sad at the same time. "Write to me," she whispered. "Tell me when you're coming back." Jordan flew home to Chicago the next morning. Elena stood on her balcony and watched his taxi disappear into the busy Barcelona traffic. She touched the silver bracelet on her wrist, the one Jordan had bought her at a street market. For 3 months they wrote letters. Real letters on paper. Sent across the ocean. Jordan's letters were full of plans and promises. Elena's were full of hope and patience. But slowly, Jordan's letters came less often. His comeback attempt with the Washington Wizards took all his time. His divorce from Juanita became ugly and public. The media followed his every move. Elena's last letter came in December 1999. She wrote that she was moving to New York for a new job opportunity. She asked him to call her when he received the letter. Jordan never called. The letter sat on his kitchen counter for weeks, and then got buried under bills and contracts. By the time he found it again, months later, it was too late. He tried to find Elena's new address in New York, but Elena Vasquez was a common name. His private investigators found dozens of women with that name, but none of them were his Elena. Jordan convinced himself it was for the best. He was too complicated, too famous, too broken for someone like Elena. She deserved better than a man who could only love basketball completely. But late at night, when his house in Chicago was quiet and empty, Jordan thought about Barcelona. He remembered the taste of tapas and the sound of Elena's laugh. He remembered feeling normal for 3 perfect weeks. He never stopped regretting letting her go. Now, 25 years later, Elena Vasquez was sitting 3 rows behind him at the United Center. Jordan's heart pounded as he stared into her familiar eyes. The crowd was cheering about something happening on the court, but Jordan couldn't hear them anymore. All he could see was Elena, older but still beautiful, watching him with an expression he couldn't read. Elena reached into her purse again. This time, she pulled out more than just a photograph. She held up a small piece of paper, old and yellowed with age. Even from 3 rows away, Jordan could see his own handwriting on it. It was one of his letters from 1999. The one where he had promised to love her forever. Jordan's chest felt tight. His breathing became shallow. Around him, fans were taking pictures with their phones, but he barely noticed. Elena stood up from her seat. She moved carefully, like someone who had practiced this moment many times. She started walking down the steps toward Jordan's row. Security guards moved to stop her, but Jordan held up his hand. "It's okay," he said, his voice cracking. "Let her through." The crowd began to quiet down. 21,000 people sensed that something important was happening. Cameras focused on the elegant woman in the red coat walking toward the most famous man in the building. Elena reached the edge of Jordan's row. She stood there for a moment looking down at him. Jordan stood up slowly, his legs unsteady. They were 3 feet apart now. Close enough to touch. Close enough to see the lines that 25 years had drawn on each other's faces. "Hello, Michael," Elena said softly. Her Spanish accent still musical after all these years. The entire United Center held its breath. Even the players on the court had stopped to watch. Jordan opened his mouth to speak, but only one word came out. "Elena." And in that single word was 25 years of regret, hope, and questions that had never been answered. Still in flashback, Barcelona and New York, the crowd at the United Center faded away as Jordan stared at Elena. But first, there was more to remember. More truth that had been hidden for 25 years. Barcelona, September 1999. 3 days after Jordan left, Elena sat in her small apartment above the art gallery, staring at a piece of plastic in her shaking hands. The pregnancy test showed 2 pink lines, positive. She had felt strange for the past week. Tired in the mornings. Sick at the smell of coffee. At first she thought it was just sadness from missing Michael. Now she knew the truth. She was going to have Michael Jordan's baby. Elena placed her hand on her still flat stomach. Inside her was a tiny life that belonged to both of them. The thought filled her with joy and terror at the same time. She picked up her phone to call Michael, then put it down. What would she say? How do you tell someone they're going to be a father when they live thousands of miles away? Instead, Elena decided to write a letter. She sat at her kitchen table with her best paper and a black pen. The words came slowly. My dearest Michael, I have something important to tell you. I am pregnant. The baby is yours, and I am keeping it. I know this changes everything between us. I don't expect anything from you, but I thought you should know. I love you more than I can put into words. Our 3 weeks together were the happiest of my life. This baby is a gift from that happiness. Please write back and tell me what you think. We need to talk about what happens next. All my love, Elena. P.S. I am moving to New York next month for a job opportunity. My new address will be on the back of this letter. Elena folded the letter carefully and put it in an envelope. She wrote Michael's Chicago address on the front, the one he had given her from his business card. She walked to the post office and sent it express mail. Then she waited. Chicago, September 1999. The same week, Michael Jordan was in the middle of the biggest mess of his life. His divorce from Juanita was front-page news. Reporters camped outside his house. His lawyers called every day with new problem. To escape the chaos, Jordan had decided to move to a new house across town. For 3 days, everything he owned was packed in boxes. Mail sat unopened on his kitchen counter, while movers carried furniture from room to room. Elena's letter arrived on the second day of the move. A postal worker left it with a pile of other mail on Jordan's kitchen counter. But with all the confusion, nobody noticed one letter among dozens. Jordan's assistant was supposed to forward important mail to the new house. But Elena's letter got mixed up with old bills and advertisements. It ended up in a box marked miscellaneous papers that went straight to Jordan's basement storage room. Jordan never saw it. New York City, March. Elena gave birth to her son on a cold Tuesday morning at Mount Sinai Hospital. She was alone except for her friend Maria, who had moved to New York with her. The baby weighed 7 pounds and had a full head of dark hair. When the doctor placed him in Elena's arms, she cried from pure love. He had Michael's nose and Michael's long fingers. What will you name him? The nurse asked. Elena had thought about this for months. She couldn't name him Michael, that would be too painful. Instead, she chose Carlos, after her grandfather who had taught her to paint. Carlos Vasquez, Elena whispered to her sleeping son. You are going to be loved so much. Elena had hoped Michael would call or write after receiving her letter. She had waited by her phone for weeks. But as the months passed with no word from him, she realized he didn't want to be part of this. Maybe it was better this way. Michael had his own family, his own problems. Elena was strong enough to raise Carlos alone. New York City, 2000. Elena built a new life in Manhattan. She opened a small art gallery in Soho and slowly made it successful. Carlos grew up surrounded by paintings and artists. He was a quiet, thoughtful child who loved to draw. Elena never told Carlos who his father was. When he asked, she said, Your father was a good man who couldn't stay with us. But he gave me you, and that was the greatest gift of all. As Carlos got older, people sometimes said he looked familiar. He was tall like his father, with the same intense eyes and graceful way of moving. But he showed no interest in sports. Instead, he spent hours sketching and painting. Elena watched Michael's career from far away. She saw him come out of retirement to play for the Washington Wizards. She watched his final retirement ceremony on television, tears in her eyes. When he was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, she felt proud and sad at the same time. Sometimes Elena wondered what would have happened if Michael had gotten her letter. Would he have come to New York? Would they have raised Carlos together? But she tried not to think about it too much. Life had turned out well, despite everything. Carlos grew into a talented young man. He graduated from art school and started showing his paintings in galleries around New York. Elena was proud of the person he had become. Kind, creative, and strong. But Elena kept one secret from everyone, even Carlos. In her bedroom closet, she had a box of memories from Barcelona. Michael's letters, photographs of them together, and the silver bracelet he had bought her. Late at night, when she couldn't sleep, she would look through the box and remember those perfect 3 weeks. Manhattan, February. Carlos Vasquez, now 24 years old, stood in his art studio looking at a painting he had just finished. It showed a young boy shooting a basketball at a hoop that seemed to fade into clouds. He called the painting Missing Father. It was part of a series he was creating about children who grew up without knowing their dads. Carlos had always wondered about his father. His mother's story never quite made sense to him. A good man who couldn't stay? What did that mean? Was his father married to someone else? Did he die? Was he in prison? Recently, Carlos had been hired to paint a large mural for the NBA's 75th anniversary celebration at Madison Square Garden. As part of his research, he had been studying basketball history and famous players. That's when he found the photographs. Carlos was looking through old sports magazines in the library when he came across a picture from a 1999 charity game in Barcelona. The photo showed Michael Jordan signing autographs after the game. In the background, barely visible, was a woman with dark hair wearing a distinctive silver bracelet. Carlos stared at the photo for a long time. The bracelet looked exactly like one his mother wore every day. The woman's posture, the way she stood, it looked like his mother from behind. Carlos took a picture of the magazine page with his phone. When he got home, he compared it to old photos of his mother. The more he looked, the more certain he became. His mother had been in Barcelona in 1999, the same place and time as Michael Jordan. Carlos began researching everything he could find about Jordan's trip to Barcelona. He discovered that Jordan had stayed for 3 weeks, much longer than originally planned. There were rumors about him being seen at art galleries and restaurants. Art galleries, like the one his mother had owned. Carlos felt his heart racing. Could Michael Jordan be his father? He thought about his own height, his long fingers, the way people sometimes said he looked familiar. He thought about his mother's sadness whenever Michael Jordan appeared on television. All the pieces seemed to fit. Manhattan, February 2024. 2 weeks later, Carlos confronted his mother in her gallery after closing time. He showed her the magazine photo on his phone. "Mom, is this you?" Elena looked at the photo and her face went pale. She sat down heavily in a chair. "Where did you find this? Does it matter? Mom, is Michael Jordan my father?" Elena closed her eyes. For 24 years, she had dreaded this moment. She had hoped Carlos would never find out that they could live their quiet life forever. "Yes," she whispered. Carlos stared at his mother. Part of him had expected this answer, but hearing it out loud was still shocking. "Why didn't you tell me? I tried to tell him about you. I sent him a letter when I found out I was pregnant. He never responded. I thought he didn't want us." Carlos felt anger building in his chest. "So you decided for both of us?" "I had a right to know. I was protecting you," Elena said, standing up. "Do you know what it would have been like growing up as Michael Jordan's secret son? The media would have destroyed our lives." "That wasn't your choice to make," Carlos said quietly. Elena began to cry. "I did the best I could. I raised you with love. I gave you everything I had." Carlos softened when he saw his mother's tears. "I know you did, Mom, and I'm grateful, but I need to meet him." "No," Elena said firmly. "Absolutely not. He has his own family now. We've done fine without him for 24 years. He's my father," Carlos said. "I'm going to meet him whether you like it or not." Elena realized her son was serious. Carlos had saved enough money to buy expensive tickets to a Bulls game. He planned to approach Michael Jordan at the United Center. That night, Elena lay awake staring at the ceiling. She thought about Carlos's hurt and anger. She thought about Michael, who had never known he had another son. She thought about the secret that had shaped all their lives. By morning, Elena had made a decision. If anyone was going to tell Michael Jordan about Carlos, it should be her. She owed him that much, and she owed Carlos the chance to have a father, even if it was 24 years too late. Elena bought a plane ticket to Chicago. She would go to the game first, alone. She would prepare Michael for the truth before Carlos arrived. She packed carefully for the trip. In her purse, she placed the old photograph from Barcelona and one of Michael's letters from 1999, evidence of what they had once shared. As her plane took off from LaGuardia Airport, Elena wondered if she was making the biggest mistake of her life. But it was time for the truth to come out. Michael Jordan was about to learn that his night in Barcelona had changed his life in ways he never imagined. Present day, Manhattan, February. Carlos Vasquez stood in his art studio, paintbrush trembling in his hand. For the third time that morning, he had tried to work on his latest painting, but his mind kept racing. Everything had changed since he discovered the truth about his father 2 weeks ago. The studio was small but filled with light from tall windows. Canvases covered every wall, showing Carlos's talent for capturing movement and emotion. His specialty was sports paintings, but with an artistic twist that made them look more like dreams than photographs. On his easel sat a half-finished painting of basketball players reaching for the sky. But today, Carlos couldn't focus on the work. His phone sat on the paint-covered table, showing airline websites. He had been pricing tickets to Chicago for hours. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. His friend Jake walked in, carrying coffee and bagels from the shop downstairs. "You look terrible," Jake said, setting the food on the only clean spot he could find. "Did you sleep at all last night?" Carlos rubbed his eyes. "Not really. I keep thinking about what I'm going to say to him." "You're really going through with this?" "I have to. This is my father we're talking about. Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player who ever lived. And he doesn't even know I exist." Jake sat down on a paint-splattered stool. He had been Carlos's friend since art school and knew him better than anyone. "Your mom is going to be furious if you just show up at his game." "My mom has been lying to me for 24 years, Carlos said, anger creeping into his voice. "She made this choice for me when I was a baby. Now I get to make my own choice." Carlos walked to his computer and pulled up the NBA website. The Chicago Bulls were playing the Lakers at the United Center on March 15th. He had been checking ticket prices obsessively. Courtside seats cost $8,000. Carlos said, "I've been saving money from my art sales for 2 years. I have almost enough." "That's crazy expensive just to maybe get his attention." "It's not about the money," Carlos said. "It's about being close enough that he can't ignore me." Jake looked around the studio at all of Carlos's paintings. Many of them showed fathers and sons playing sports together, or children reaching toward distant figures. "You've been painting him your whole life, haven't you?" Jake said quietly. Carlos nodded. "I never realized it before. But look at this one." He pointed to a painting of a man teaching a boy to shoot a basketball. The man's face was hidden in shadows. "I painted that when I was 16. I thought I was just making it up. But now I think I was painting a memory I never had." The two friends sat in silence for a moment. Outside the window, New York City buzzed with its usual energy. People walked quickly down the sidewalk, everyone rushing somewhere important. "What if he rejects you?" Jake asked. "What if he doesn't want another son?" Carlos had thought about this possibility every day since learning the truth. It was his biggest fear. "Then at least I'll know," Carlos said. "I'm tired of wondering. I'm tired of feeling like half of myself is missing." Carlos's phone buzzed with a text message from his mother. "Working late at the gallery tonight. See you tomorrow for lunch." Carlos felt a stab of guilt. His mother had raised him alone, working long hours to build her art business. She had given him everything she could, but she had also kept the biggest secret of his life from him. "I need to tell her what I'm planning," Carlos said. "Good luck with that," Jake said. "She's gonna try to stop you." That evening, Carlos walked to his mother's gallery in Soho. The neighborhood was quiet, with most of the art shops closed for the day. Elena's gallery, Galeria Nueva, was still lit up inside. Through the window, Carlos could see his mother talking to a customer about a large painting. Carlos waited outside until the customer left. Then he took a deep breath and walked in. "Carlos." Elena smiled when she saw him. "What brings you here so late?" The gallery looked the same as always. White walls, soft lighting, beautiful paintings carefully arranged to show their best angles. Elena had built this place from nothing, just like she had built their life together. "Mom, we need to talk." Elena heard the serious tone in her son's voice. She locked the front door and flipped the sign to closed. "What's wrong?" Carlos pulled out his phone and showed her the basketball tickets he had been looking at online. "I'm going to Chicago. I'm going to tell him who I am." Elena's face went white. She sat down heavily in the chair behind her desk. "Carlos, no, please, this is a mistake." "Why?" "Because he might actually want to know me." "Because it will ruin your life," Elena said, her voice rising. "Do you have any idea what happens when you become part of Michael Jordan's world? The media will tear you apart. They'll question everything about us. Our quiet life will be over forever." Carlos walked closer to his mother's desk. "Maybe I don't want a quiet life. Maybe I want to know where I came from." Elena stood up and walked to a painting on the wall. It was one of Carlos's pieces from when he was 18. An abstract work showing a figure reaching toward a distant star. "You came from love," Elena said quietly. "Your father and I loved each other deeply for 3 weeks. When I found out I was pregnant, I was happy. You were never a mistake or an accident. You were a gift. Then why did he leave? He didn't know about you. I tried to tell him, but my letter got lost. By the time I realized he wasn't coming back, I decided it was better this way." Carlos felt frustrated, tears building in his eyes. Better for who? For him? For you? What about what was better for me? Elena turned around to face her son. For the first time, Carlos saw how much pain she had been carrying all these years. "I was 28 years old and pregnant in a foreign country," Elena said. "The man I loved had disappeared without explanation. I did what I thought was best for my child. But now I'm not a child anymore. I'm a grown man and I have the right to make my own decisions." Elena realized that Carlos was determined to do this no matter what she said. She could see Michael's stubborn streak in her son's face. "If you're going to do this," Elena said slowly, "then I should be the one to tell him first." Carlos looked surprised. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I should go to Chicago and prepare him for the truth. He deserves to know about you, but not by having you suddenly appear at a basketball game." Carlos thought about this. Part of him wanted to rush to Chicago and confront his father immediately, but another part of him understood his mother's point. "You would really do that?" After all these years, Elena nodded. "It's time for the truth to come out. But we should do it the right way." That night, Elena sat in her apartment looking through the old box of memories from Barcelona. She held the photograph of her and Michael sleeping peacefully together, both of them young and in love. Tomorrow, she would book a flight to Chicago. She would sit in that arena and look into Michael's eyes for the first time in 25 years. She would tell him about Carlos, about the letter that never arrived, about the son he never knew existed. Elena was terrified, but she was also ready. The next morning, Elena bought a ticket for the Bulls vs. Lakers game. She chose a seat 3 rows behind Michael's usual courtside spot, close enough to get his attention, but far enough away to avoid causing a scene. She packed carefully for the trip. In her purse, she placed the old photograph from Barcelona and one of Michael's letters from 1999. She also included a recent photo of Carlos receiving an award for his artwork. As Elena's taxi pulled up to LaGuardia Airport, her phone rang. It was Carlos. "Mom, are you sure about this?" "No," Elena said honestly, "but it's the right thing to do. What if he's angry that we kept this secret for so long? Then he'll be angry. But at least he'll know the truth." Elena boarded the plane to Chicago with her heart pounding. In a few hours, she would change 3 lives forever. Michael would learn he had another son. Carlos would finally meet his father. And Elena would have to face the consequences of a decision she made 25 years ago. As the plane took off, Elena looked out the window at New York disappearing below her. She thought about the scared young woman who had written that letter in Barcelona so long ago. That woman had tried to do the right thing and failed. Now it was time to try again. United Center, March 15, 2024, back to present. The game clock showed 4 minutes left in the 4th quarter. The Bulls had cut the Lakers' lead to 2 points. The crowd was on their feet, screaming and waving red towels, but none of the noise reached Elena Vasquez as she sat 3 rows behind Michael Jordan. Elena's hands shook slightly as she gripped her purse. Inside was the photograph that had started everything tonight, the picture of her and Michael from their last morning in Barcelona. She had carried it with her for 25 years, but never imagined she would show it to him again. Michael had turned around twice more during the game. Each time their eyes met, Elena saw the same mix of shock and confusion on his face. He looked older, of course. His hair was gray at the temples. Lines around his eyes showed the weight of fame and time, but his eyes were exactly the same, intense and searching. Elena remembered those eyes looking at her with love in a small Barcelona restaurant. She remembered them filled with sadness at the airport, when he had to leave. Now they were filled with questions she wasn't sure how to answer. The fans around Elena had noticed the tension between her and Jordan. Phones were recording their every glance. Social media was already buzzing with speculation. Who was the elegant woman in the red coat? Why did Michael Jordan look like he had seen a ghost? Elena checked her watch. Carlos would be arriving soon. Her son had taken a later flight and was supposed to meet her at the arena during the fourth quarter. Everything was happening exactly as they had planned, but Elena felt terrified. On the court, a Bulls player made a three-point shot. The arena exploded with noise. Jordan stood and clapped, but Elena could see his heart wasn't in it. His mind was somewhere else. Probably Barcelona. During the timeout, Elena made her decision. She couldn't wait any longer. If she was going to do this, it had to be now, before Carlos arrived and complicated everything. Elena stood up from her seat. The movement caught Jordan's attention immediately. He turned around and watched as she stepped into the aisle. Security guards noticed too and started moving toward her. Elena walked down the steps slowly, her red coat flowing behind her. Every step felt enormous. With each step, she was walking back through 25 years of separation and silence. When she reached Jordan's row, the security guards moved to block her path. But Jordan held up his hand. "It's okay," he said quietly. "Let her through." The crowd fell silent. Even the players on the court seemed to sense something important was happening. Cameras focused on the elegant woman approaching the most famous man in the building. Elena stopped 3 feet away from Jordan's chair. They looked at each other for a long moment. 25 years of questions hung in the air between them. "Hello, Michael," Elena said softly, her Spanish accent still musical after all these years in America. Jordan stood up slowly, his legs unsteady. The arena held its breath. "Elena," he whispered. The crowd watched in fascination as these two people stared at each other like they were the only ones in the building. "We need to talk," Elena said. Jordan nodded. He looked around at the thousands of watching faces and realized they couldn't have this conversation here. "Follow me," he said. Jordan led Elena toward a tunnel that went under the arena. Security guards cleared a path, keeping curious fans away. As they walked, Elena heard whispers from the crowd. "Who is she? She must be someone important. Did you see how he looked at her?" The tunnel was quiet and dimly lit. Their footsteps echoed off the concrete walls. Above them, the crowd roared as the game continued. But down here, it felt like they were in a different world. Jordan stopped walking and turned to face Elena. Now that they were alone, all the emotions he had been holding back came rushing to the surface. "Why are you here?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. Elena reached into her purse and pulled out the old photograph. She held it so Jordan could see it clearly. It was the picture from their last morning in Barcelona. Both of them young and in love, sleeping peacefully together. Jordan stared at the photo. He remembered that morning perfectly. They had stayed up all night talking about their future together. He had been so happy, so sure that they would find a way to make it work. "I kept this," Elena said softly. "All these years I kept it." Jordan's eyes filled with tears. "Elena, I tried to find you. After I got settled in Washington, I hired investigators. I looked everywhere." "I know," Elena said. "I moved to New York. I changed my life completely." "But why?" "We had plans. We were going to write letters, and I was going to come back." Elena pulled out her phone and showed Jordan pictures. Baby photos, school pictures, graduation ceremonies. A young man who looked remarkably like Jordan at the same age. Jordan's knees nearly gave out. He grabbed the tunnel wall for support. "Is he?" "Your son," Elena said simply. "His name is Carlos. He's 24 years old." Jordan stared at the photos, his mind racing. The young man had his nose, his hands, his way of tilting his head when thinking. There was no doubt. "Why didn't you tell me?" Jordan's voice was barely a whisper. Elena explained about the letter she had sent, about moving during his divorce, about the letter getting lost in the chaos of his life change. "I wrote to you when I found out I was pregnant," Elena said. "I told you everything. I waited for months for you to respond. When you never called or wrote back, I thought you didn't want us." Jordan felt like the world was spinning. "I never got any letter. Elena, I swear to you I never knew." They stood in the tunnel, both crying now. 25 years of misunderstanding and missed opportunities crashed down on them. "I thought you had abandoned us," Elena said. "I thought the famous Michael Jordan didn't want to deal with a pregnant woman in Spain. And I thought you had decided I was too complicated, too much trouble." Jordan said. I thought you chose a life without me. Above them, the crowd roared. Someone had made an incredible shot, but neither Elena nor Jordan heard it. Tell me about him, Jordan said, looking at the photos again. Tell me about our son. Elena's voice softened as she talked about Carlos. He's an artist, a painter. He specializes in sports art, but he never liked playing sports himself. He's gentle and thoughtful and kind. He has your determination but also your sensitivity. Does he know about me? He found out 2 weeks ago. He was researching basketball history for a painting project and found an old photo of you in Barcelona. He recognized my bracelet in the background. Jordan looked at Elena's wrist. She was still wearing the silver bracelet he had bought her at a street market 25 years ago. He wants to meet you, Elena continued. That's why I'm here. I came to prepare you, to tell you the truth before he did something dramatic like showing up at your house. Jordan was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. He had another son, a son who was a grown man, who had lived his entire life without knowing his father. Where is he now? Jordan asked. Elena checked her watch. He should be here soon. He took a later flight. He's probably upstairs in the arena right now looking for us. Jordan felt panic and excitement at the same time. In a few minutes he would meet his son for the first time. A son he had never known existed. I don't know how to do this, Jordan admitted. I've made so many mistakes with my other kids. I was always traveling, always focused on basketball. How do I be a father to someone who's already grown up? Elena reached out and touched Jordan's arm. You start by being honest. You start by caring. Carlos doesn't need you to be perfect. He just needs you to be real. Above them, the crowd noise changed. The game was ending. Soon, thousands of people would be leaving the arena. Elena, Jordan said urgently. Before he gets here, I need you to know something. Not a day went by that I didn't think about you. Not a day went by that I didn't regret not coming back to Barcelona. Elena felt fresh tears on her cheeks. I never stopped loving you, Michael. But I learned to love you differently. As a memory. As the father of my child. Jordan nodded. I understand. We can't go back. But maybe we can go forward. A security guard appeared at the end of the tunnel. Mr. Jordan, there's a young man upstairs asking for you. Says his name is Carlos Vasquez. Elena and Jordan looked at each other. The moment they had been preparing for was here. Are you ready? Elena asked. Jordan took a deep breath. I've been ready for 25 years. I just didn't know it. Together they walked back up the tunnel toward the arena. With each step, Jordan felt like he was walking toward a future he had never imagined but always hoped for. At the top of the tunnel, they could see the arena. The game was over, but many fans were still in their seats, talking and taking pictures. Somewhere in that crowd was Carlos, waiting to meet his father for the first time. Jordan stopped walking. Elena, what if he doesn't like me? What if I disappoint him? Elena smiled. The first real smile Jordan had seen from her all night. Then you'll try again tomorrow. That's what parents do. Jordan squeezed Elena's hand. Then together, they walked into the arena to meet their son. United Center. Continuing immediately, Jordan and Elena emerged from the tunnel into the bright lights of the arena. The game had ended with a Bulls victory, but many fans were still in their seats, taking selfies and talking excitedly. The energy in the building was electric. Elena scanned the crowd, looking for Carlos. Her heart was beating so fast she could hear it over the arena noise. After 24 years of protecting her son from this moment, she was about to watch him meet his father. There. Elena pointed toward section 312 in the upper level. He's wearing a gray jacket. Jordan looked up and saw a young man sitting alone in the seats, sketching in a notebook. Even from this distance, Jordan could see the resemblance. The way Carlos held his head, the shape of his shoulders, it was like looking at himself 25 years ago. He's drawing, Jordan said, surprised. He always draws when he's nervous. Elena explained, or excited, or scared. He draws through all his emotions. Jordan felt a mix of pride and sadness. His son was an artist, something Jordan had never been good at understanding. But watching Carlos sketch so intently, Jordan could see the same focus and dedication that he had brought to basketball. Should we go up there? Jordan asked. Elena nodded. He's been waiting his whole life for this moment. They made their way through the arena corridors. Security guards cleared a path, but Jordan barely noticed them. His mind was focused entirely on the young man 3 levels above them. As they climbed the stairs, Jordan's hands started shaking. He had faced pressure in Game 7 of the NBA Finals, but this felt bigger than any basketball game. This was his son. What if I say the wrong thing? Jordan asked Elena as they reached the 2nd level. There is no wrong thing, Elena said gently. Just be yourself. Be honest. They continued climbing. Jordan's legs felt heavy, like he was walking through water. Each step brought him closer to a moment that would change his life forever. Finally, they reached section 312. Jordan could see Carlos clearly now. The young man was completely absorbed in his drawing, unaware that his parents were approaching. His sketch showed the empty basketball court below, but he had added something that wasn't there. A small figure of a child shooting a basketball into the stands. Jordan stopped walking. Elena, I can't do this. Yes, you can, Elena said firmly. He needs you to do this. Jordan took a deep breath and continued walking. As they got closer, Carlos looked up from his notebook. His eyes widened when he saw them approaching together. Carlos stood up slowly. For a moment, father and son just stared at each other across the row of seats. Jordan saw his own eyes looking back at him from a face that was both familiar and completely new. Carlos, Jordan said, his voice barely audible over the arena noise. Dad, Carlos replied simply. The word hit Jordan like a physical blow. Dad. No one had called him that for the first time since his other children were babies. But hearing it from this grown man, his son, made Jordan's knees weak. Jordan stepped into the row of seats. Carlos met him halfway. They stood face to face, both unsure what to do next. I'm sorry, Jordan said suddenly. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. Carlos had imagined this moment 1,000 times. He had planned angry speeches and emotional confrontations. But seeing the pain in his father's eyes, all Carlos felt was sadness for the time they had lost. It wasn't your fault, Carlos said. Mom told me about the letter. Jordan reached out tentatively and touched Carlos's shoulder. Can I hug you? Carlos nodded. Father and son embraced for the first time, 24 years late. Jordan held Carlos tightly, trying to make up for every missed birthday, every missed game, every missed moment with this one hug. Around them, other fans began to notice what was happening. Phones came out, recording the emotional scene, but Jordan didn't care about the cameras anymore. All that mattered was the young man in his arms. When they separated, both men had tears in their eyes. Sit with me, Carlos said, gesturing to the seats. I want to show you something. They sat down together, with Elena on Carlos's other side. Carlos opened his sketchbook and flipped through pages of drawings. Jordan saw basketball players, city scenes, and portraits of people Carlos had met. I've been drawing you my whole life, Carlos said, showing Jordan a sketch of a basketball player from behind. I just didn't know it was you. Jordan studied the drawing. It captured something about basketball that he had never seen in photographs. The loneliness of being great, the weight of expectations. This is incredible, Jordan said. You're really talented. Carlos flipped to another page. This one showed a man teaching a boy to shoot a basketball, but the man's face was hidden in shadows. I painted this when I was 16, Carlos said. I called it the father I never had. But now I think I was painting a memory I hoped to have someday. Jordan felt his throat tighten. Carlos, I want you to know something. If I had known about you, I would have been there. I would have tried to be the father you deserved. I know, Carlos said. Mom always said you were a good man who couldn't stay. Now I understand what she meant. Elena watched her 2 men bond over Carlos's artwork. She saw Jordan being gentle and patient in a way she had never seen during their intense weeks in Barcelona. Becoming a father had changed him, even if he hadn't known it was happening. Will you come to New York? Carlos asked suddenly. I have an art show next month. I'd like you to be there. Jordan felt overwhelmed with emotion. His son wanted him to be part of his life. I'll be there, Jordan promised. I want to see everything you've created. I want to know everything about you. Carlos smiled for the first time since they had started talking. It was Jordan's smile, bright and confident. "I want to know about you too," Carlos said. "The real you, not the basketball legend. I want to know what makes you laugh, what makes you scared, what you dream about." "I dream about having time back," Jordan said honestly. "Time with all my children. Time to be better than I was." They talked for another hour as the arena slowly emptied around them. Carlos told Jordan about his art, his life in New York, his questions about his father. Jordan talked about his other children, his regrets, his hope that it wasn't too late to be the father Carlos needed. Elena listened and watched, amazed by how naturally they connected. Despite 24 years apart, father and son had the same way of thinking, the same intensity when they cared about something. "There's something else," Carlos said as the conversation wound down. He pulled out his phone and showed Jordan pictures of his latest art series. "I've been working on paintings about absent fathers, about kids who grow up wondering where they came from." Jordan looked at the paintings on the phone screen. They were beautiful and heartbreaking, showing children reaching toward shadowy father figures. "I'm going to change the title of the series," Carlos said. "Instead of Absent Fathers, I'm going to call it Fathers Who Find Their Way Home." Jordan couldn't speak. He pulled Carlos into another hug, this one even tighter than the first. "I love you, son," Jordan whispered. "I know I don't have the right to say that yet, but I do. I love you." "I love you too, Dad," Carlos whispered back. Elena wiped tears from her eyes as she watched her family heal 24 years of separation in a single evening. But as they sat together in the empty arena, Elena knew their challenges were just beginning. Tomorrow, the media would discover the story. The world would learn about Michael Jordan's secret son. Their quiet life would be over forever. For tonight, though, they were just a family. Father, mother, and son, together at last. As they prepared to leave the arena, a security guard approached them. "Mr. Jordan, there are reporters outside. They're asking questions about the young man and the lady. Do you want us to arrange a private exit?" Jordan looked at Elena and Carlos. "What do you want to do?" Carlos straightened his shoulders. "I'm not ashamed of who I am. If you're ready to tell the world about me, I'm ready too." Elena felt proud of her son's courage. "Together," she said. "We face this together." Jordan nodded. "Then we walk out the front door. As a family." The three of them stood up and walked toward the arena exit, ready to face whatever came next. They had found each other again after 25 years. Whenever challenges waited outside, they would meet them together. United Center, walking to the exit. Jordan, Elena, and Carlos made their way through the arena's back corridors toward the main exit. Each step felt enormous to Jordan. In 25 years of fame, he had never walked into a media storm with such personal stakes. Security guards surrounded them as they moved through the hallways. Arena workers stopped their cleanup duties to stare. Word was spreading quickly that something big was happening with Michael Jordan. "Sir," one of the security guards said to Jordan, "there are at least 50 reporters outside the main entrance. Channel 7, ESPN, TMZ, they're all here. Are you sure you want to go out that way?" Jordan looked at Carlos, who was walking beside him with quiet determination. His son's jaw was set in a way that reminded Jordan of himself before big games. "What do you think?" Jordan asked Carlos. "We can still go out the back if you want more time to prepare." Carlos shook his head. "I've been preparing for this my whole life. I'm ready." Elena felt proud of her son's courage, but also terrified. In a few minutes, their private family moment would become public property. Carlos had lived his entire life in peaceful anonymity. That was about to end forever. "Carlos," Elena said, touching his arm. "Once we walk out there, everything changes. The media will dig into our lives. They'll ask hard questions. Are you absolutely sure?" Carlos stopped walking and turned to face his parents. "Mom, you've protected me for 24 years. Dad, you've carried the weight of fame your whole career. Now it's my turn to be strong." Jordan felt a surge of pride. His son had the same courage that had carried Jordan through championship games and difficult moments. They continued walking toward the exit. Through the glass doors, they could see camera crews setting up lights. Reporters were checking their phones and talking into microphones. The story was already breaking on social media. "How do we do this?" Carlos asked. "Do we just walk out and start talking? Let me handle the media part, Jordan said. I've been dealing with reporters for 30 years. But Carlos, if you want to say something, speak from your heart. Don't worry about saying the perfect thing. They reached the doors leading outside. Jordan could see the crowd of reporters and cameras waiting for them. Behind the media, curious fans were gathering, drawn by the commotion. Jordan's phone was buzzing constantly with calls from his publicist, his business manager, and his other children. The story was spreading fast across the internet. One last chance to change your mind, Jordan said to Carlos and Elena. Together, Elena said firmly. Together, Carlos agreed. Jordan pushed open the doors. The March night air was cold, but the camera lights made everything bright as daylight. Dozens of reporters started shouting questions at once. Michael, who is the young man? Is this your son? How long have you known about him? Where has he been all these years? Jordan held up his hand for quiet. Slowly, the crowd of reporters settled down. I'm going to make a brief statement, Jordan said, his voice carrying easily across the parking lot. Then I'll answer a few questions. Carlos stood on Jordan's right side, Elena on his left. The three of them looked like a family, even though they had only been together as one for a few hours. 25 years ago, I met Elena Vasquez in Barcelona, Jordan began. We fell in love. When I left Spain, Elena discovered she was pregnant. She tried to contact me, but her letter never reached me due to circumstances beyond our control. The crowd of reporters was completely silent now, hanging on every word. Elena raised our son Carlos alone for 24 years. She did an incredible job. Carlos is a talented artist and a good man. I'm proud to be his father, even though I'm 24 years late to the job. Cameras flashed constantly. Jordan could see reporters typing frantically on their phones, sending the story around the world in real time. This is not a scandal, Jordan continued. This is a family reunion. Elena and Carlos are not seeking anything from me except the chance to know each other. We're going to build the relationship we should have had all along. A reporter from ESPN raised her hand. Carlos, what was it like growing up not knowing Michael Jordan was your father? Carlos stepped closer to the microphones. His voice was quiet but clear. It was hard sometimes, Carlos said honestly. But my mother gave me everything I needed. She taught me to be strong and kind and to follow my dreams. I never felt like something was missing until I was old enough to understand what a father could be. Another reporter called out, Elena, why didn't you try harder to contact Michael over the years? Elena had been dreading this question. But she answered honestly, I was young and scared. Elena said, when Michael didn't respond to my letter, I thought he didn't want us. I decided it was better to raise Carlos in peace than to force ourselves into a life where we weren't wanted. But I did want you, Jordan said, looking at Elena. I just never knew. The emotion in Jordan's voice made several reporters stop typing and just listen. A young reporter from a Chicago newspaper raised his hand. Carlos, what's it like meeting your father for the first time in front of all these cameras? Carlos smiled slightly. Honestly, I wish we could have met somewhere quiet, just the three of us. But this is who my father is. He's Michael Jordan. Privacy isn't really an option. Do you resent growing up without him? Another reporter asked. Carlos thought about the question carefully before answering. I resent the misunderstanding that kept us apart. Carlos said, but I don't resent the life my mother and I built together. She's an amazing woman who raised me to be proud of who I am. Elena felt tears in her eyes as she listened to her son defend their life together. One last question, Jordan said, wanting to end the press conference before it became overwhelming. A veteran sports reporter from the Chicago Tribune raised his hand. Michael, what happens now? How do you build a relationship with a son you've never known? Jordan looked at Carlos, then at Elena, then back at the cameras. You start where you are, Jordan said. You start with honesty and hope. You start by caring more about the future than the past. Carlos is an adult with his own life and dreams. I'm not trying to be the father of a little boy. I'm trying to be the friend and supporter of a grown man who happens to be my son. The reporters seemed satisfied with that answer. Jordan, Elena, and Carlos started walking toward the car that security had arranged for them. Michael, one last reporter called out, are you worried about how this will affect your legacy? Jordan stopped walking and turned back to the cameras. My legacy is not just about basketball, Jordan said. It's about being a man who faced his mistakes and tried to make them right. Tonight, I learned I have another son. That doesn't hurt my legacy. It completes it. As they got into the car, Carlos looked at his father with new respect. You handled that really well, Carlos said. You both did, Jordan replied. I'm proud of how you carried yourselves out there. Elena sat in the front seat, watching Chicago pass by through the car window. 25 years ago, she had left this city heartbroken and alone. Tonight, she was leaving it as part of a family again. Where are we going? Carlos asked. My hotel, Jordan said. We have a lot more talking to do, and I want to hear about every single year I missed. As their car pulled away from the United Center, none of them noticed the lone figure watching from the parking garage. Marcus Thompson, the tabloid reporter, was already making phone calls to his editors. He had been digging into this story since the moment he saw Elena's face on the arena's big screen. Marcus had found something that Elena, Carlos, and Jordan didn't know yet. Something that could change everything they thought they understood about their past. But for now, the reunited family rode through the Chicago night, talking and laughing like they had known each other forever. They had found each other again after 25 years. The real test of their bond was just beginning. The Ritz-Carlton Chicago Jordan's hotel suite. Jordan's hotel suite overlooked Lake Michigan. Through the tall windows, the dark water stretched toward the horizon, dotted with lights from boats and distant shores. The city lights of Chicago sparkled below them like scattered diamonds. Carlos stood at the window, still holding his sketchbook. Even here, surrounded by luxury he had never experienced, he found himself drawing. His hands moved across the paper, capturing the view but adding his own touches. A small figure looking out at the vast water, searching for something. You really do draw everything, Jordan said, joining Carlos at the window. It helps me think, Carlos explained. When my emotions get too big for words, I put them on paper. Elena had excused herself to call her gallery manager in New York. The story was already spreading across social media, and reporters were calling the gallery looking for information. Elena needed to prepare her staff for the attention that was coming. Jordan and Carlos were alone for the first time since meeting. The silence between them was comfortable, but full of unspoken questions. Can I see more of your work? Jordan asked. Carlos opened his sketchbook to the beginning. The first drawing was from when he was 8 years old. A stick figure man playing basketball with a stick figure boy. Even in the simple lines, Jordan could see the longing. I used to imagine teaching you to play, Carlos said quietly. I drew it over and over, but the man's face was always blank because I didn't know what you looked like. Jordan's chest tightened. Did you want to play basketball? For a while. But every time I tried, it reminded me that I didn't have a dad to teach me. So I quit and focused on art instead. I'm sorry, Jordan said. I would have loved to teach you. Carlos flipped to a drawing from his teenage years. This one showed a basketball court, but instead of players, there were easels with paintings on them. I used to dream about combining both worlds, Carlos said. Sports and art. I thought maybe if I could paint basketball well enough, it would bring us together somehow. Jordan studied the drawing. Carlos had managed to capture the grace and movement of basketball in a way that photographs never could. This is incredible, Jordan said. You see things I never noticed even after playing for 20 years. Carlos turned to a more recent page. This drawing showed the United Center from the outside, but he had drawn it like a cathedral, with light streaming through the windows. I drew this last week when I bought my ticket to the game, Carlos said. I was so nervous about seeing you that my hands were shaking. But drawing made me feel calmer. Were you planning to approach me at the game? I wasn't sure. I thought maybe I would just watch you from far away and try to understand who you were. But Mom decided to come first. Jordan sat down on the couch and gestured for Carlos to join him. They sat side by side, father and son, looking through 24 years of artwork that told the story of a boy growing up without his father. Tell me about school, Jordan said. Tell me about friends, about your first girlfriend, about all the things I missed. Carlos talked for an hour about his childhood. He told Jordan about struggling in math, but excelling in art class. He talked about being shy in high school because he was taller than everyone else. He described his first art show at age 16, when he sold 3 paintings and felt like he could conquer the world. I was good at basketball in middle school, Carlos admitted. The coach wanted me to try out for the high school team. But every time I played, Kids would say I reminded them of someone famous. It made me uncomfortable. Why? Because I knew they were right, but I didn't know who I reminded them of. It felt like a puzzle I couldn't solve. Jordan listened to every story, filing away details about the son he had never known. Carlos was thoughtful and artistic, nothing like the aggressive competitor Jordan had been at the same age. But Jordan could see his own intensity in the way Carlos talked about his paintings. "What about you?" Carlos asked. "Tell me something about yourself that's not in the magazines or books." Jordan thought for a moment. "I'm afraid of heights," he said finally. Carlos looked surprised. "Really? But you flew through the air on the basketball court. That was different, that was controlled. But put me on the top floor of a tall building or in a small airplane and I get terrified. What else? I can't cook anything except scrambled eggs. I've tried to learn, but I burn everything. My other kids still make fun of me for setting off the smoke alarm trying to make pancakes." Carlos laughed. It was the first time Jordan had heard his son laugh, and the sound made his heart skip. "I'm a terrible cook too," Carlos said. "Mom tried to teach me, but I always get distracted and forget I have something on the stove. It runs in the family, apparently." They talked about small things, favorite foods, movies they liked, places they wanted to travel. Jordan was amazed by how easy it felt to talk to Carlos. Despite 24 years apart, they had similar ways of thinking about the world. "Can I ask you something personal?" Carlos said. "Anything. Do you regret not having a normal life? I mean, you're famous around the world, but you can't go anywhere without being recognized." Jordan considered the question carefully. "Sometimes, especially when I was younger, and felt like I was missing out on simple things. But basketball gave me so much, the chance to compete at the highest level, to inspire people, to provide for my family. I can't regret that, but it must be lonely sometimes." Jordan looked at his son with new respect. Carlos understood something about fame that most people never grasped. It can be. That's why these moments matter so much. Real connections with real people. Like tonight, sitting here with you. Carlos showed Jordan more drawings, sketches of New York City, portraits of his mother, abstract paintings that captured emotions rather than objects. Jordan was impressed by the range and depth of his son's talent. "I want to commission you to paint something," Jordan said suddenly. "What?" "Paint our family. All of us. You, me, your mother, and my other kids too. Paint the family we're gonna become." Carlos's eyes lit up. "I would love that. But I should meet your other children first, so I can capture who they really are." "They're going to love you," Jordan said confidently. "Jeffrey is quiet like you. Marcus is more outgoing. And Jasmine is creative. She designs jewelry. You'll fit right in." Elena returned from her phone call, looking tired but relieved. "Everything okay?" Jordan asked. "The gallery is handling the attention well. Maria is fielding calls from reporters, but she's not saying anything except that Carlos is a talented artist." Elena sat down across from Jordan and Carlos. She watched them together, her two men finally getting to know each other. "What have you two been talking about?" she asked. "Everything," Carlos said. "Dad's afraid of heights, and I'm going to paint a family portrait." Elena smiled. It was wonderful to hear Carlos call Jordan Dad so naturally. Jordan's phone rang. He looked at the screen and saw it was his daughter Jasmine calling. "I should take this," Jordan said. "She's probably worried about the news reports." Jordan answered the phone and stepped into the next room. Elena and Carlos could hear him talking quietly, explaining the situation to his daughter. "How do you feel?" Elena asked Carlos while they were alone. "Good, really good. He's not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone harder, more intimidating. But he's gentle. He listens. He asks good questions." Elena felt relieved. She had worried that Carlos might be disappointed by the reality of meeting his famous father. Jordan returned from his phone call smiling. "Jasmine wants to meet you," he told Carlos. "She's flying to Chicago tomorrow. Jeffrey and Marcus are coming too." Carlos felt nervous and excited at the same time. They're curious about their new brother. "Jasmine already looked up your art online and wants to buy one of your paintings." "Really? Really?" she said, and I quote, "If he's our brother, he must be talented. It runs in the family." Carlos laughed again. Jordan realized he wanted to hear that sound every day for the rest of his life. They talked until almost 2 in the morning. Elena finally fell asleep on the couch, exhausted by the emotional day. Jordan covered her with a blanket and dimmed the lights. "She's amazing," Jordan said quietly, looking at Elena. "I can't believe she raised you all by herself." "She's the strongest person I know," Carlos agreed. "But I can see why she fell in love with you." "Why?" "Because you care about people." "Really care?" "It shows in how you listen, how you ask questions." "That's rare." Jordan felt touched by his son's observation. "You're pretty special yourself. Your mother did an incredible job." As the night wore on, Jordan and Carlos grew more comfortable with each other. They discovered they both loved old movies, both worried too much about small details, and both had trouble sleeping when they were excited about something. "I should probably go to my hotel room," Carlos said around 2:30 in the morning. "Or you could stay here," Jordan offered. "There's another bedroom. We could have breakfast together and you could meet your siblings when they arrive." Carlos looked at his sleeping mother, then at his father. 24 hours ago, he had been alone in New York, wondering if he would ever meet his dad. Now he was being invited to spend the night in his father's hotel suite. "I'd like that," Carlos said. Jordan showed Carlos to the guest bedroom. As they said goodnight, Jordan did something he had dreamed of doing for 24 years, without knowing it. He hugged his son goodnight. "Thank you," Jordan whispered. "For what?" "For giving me a chance. For not hating me for missing your whole childhood. Thank you for wanting to be part of my life now," Carlos replied. As Jordan settled into his own bed, he thought about the day that had changed everything. This morning he had been Michael Jordan, basketball legend. Tonight he was also Carlos's father. It was the best promotion he had ever received, the Ritz-Carlton Chicago. Next morning, Jordan woke up at 6 in the morning just like he had every day for 30 years. Even in retirement, his body followed the rhythm of a professional athlete. But today felt different. Today he had woken up as Carlos's father. He walked quietly to the living room of the suite and found Elena awake, sitting by the window with a cup of coffee. She was watching the sunrise over Lake Michigan. "Couldn't sleep either?" Jordan asked softly. "Too much to think about," Elena replied. 25 years of wondering what would happen if we found each other again. Now I know." Jordan poured himself coffee from the room service tray that had been delivered while they slept. The hotel staff had been discreet, but Jordan knew word was spreading through the building about his famous guests. "Any regrets?" Jordan asked, sitting beside Elena. "About last night?" "No." "About the 25 years before last night?" "Too many to count." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city wake up below them. Chicago looked different in the morning light. Softer, more hopeful. "He's a good young man," Jordan said. "You did an amazing job raising him. We both made him." Elena said, "I see you in him, his intensity when he talks about something he cares about, the way he thinks through problems carefully before acting." Jordan's phone started buzzing with text messages. His business manager, his publicist, his lawyer. Everyone wanted to know about the story that had broken across the internet overnight. "The world knows about us now," Jordan said, scrolling through his messages. "Are you worried?" "About the media attention? No. I've dealt with that my whole career. I'm worried about how it affects Carlos. He's not used to this level of scrutiny." Elena shared the same concern. Carlos had lived a quiet life in New York, able to walk down the street without being recognized. That privacy was about to disappear forever. Carlos emerged from the guest bedroom, already dressed and carrying his sketchbook. His hair was messy from sleep, making him look younger than his 24 years. "Good morning," Carlos said, seeming slightly awkward. "I hope I'm not intruding. I can go back to my hotel if you need space." "You're not intruding," Jordan said firmly. "You're family. This is your space too now." Carlos smiled and joined them by the window. "The view is incredible. I've been sketching it from my room." He showed them his latest drawing, the Chicago skyline at dawn, but he had added birds flying toward the sun, giving the whole scene a sense of hope and new beginnings. "Breakfast?" Jordan asked. "I ordered room service for all of us." As they ate, Jordan's phone rang constantly. He ignored most of the calls, but when he saw it was his daughter Jasmine, he answered. "Dad, have you seen the internet?" Jasmine's voice was excited. "You're trending on every social media platform." People are calling it the sports story of the year. How are you handling it? Jordan asked. I'm excited to meet my brother. Jeffrey and Marcus feel the same way. We're all flying to Chicago this morning. Can we meet him? Jordan looked at Carlos, who nodded eagerly. Come to the hotel around noon, Jordan said. We'll have lunch together. After hanging up, Jordan noticed Elena looking worried. What's wrong? He asked. My phone is ringing non-stop too. But these aren't congratulations calls. There are reporters asking strange questions. What kind of questions? About Barcelona in 1999. About whether we knew each other before Carlos was conceived. About whether this is really a surprise reunion or if we've been in contact secretly for years. Jordan felt a chill. Of course we haven't been in secret contact. Anyone who knows us would understand that. Elena showed Jordan her phone. There were dozens of missed calls from tabloid reporters and gossip websites. One reporter left a voicemail. Elena said, he claims he has evidence that our story isn't what we're saying it is. Carlos looked up from his breakfast. What does that mean? Probably nothing, Jordan said quickly. Tabloid reporters always claim to have evidence. It's how they get people to call them back. But Elena looked genuinely worried. This reporter, Marcus Thompson, said he found records that don't match our timeline. Jordan's blood ran cold. Marcus Thompson was one of the most aggressive tabloid journalists in the business. He specialized in digging up dirt on celebrities and had destroyed several careers with his investigations. What kind of records? Jordan asked. I don't know. I didn't call him back. Jordan's phone rang again. This time it was his lawyer. Michael. We need to talk, the lawyer said without preamble. There's a situation developing. What situation? A tabloid reporter named Marcus Thompson is shopping a story about you and Elena. He claims he has proof that you knew about Carlos years ago and have been secretly supporting him. Jordan felt his stomach drop. That's completely false. I believe you. But he says he has documentation. Financial records, phone records, something. He's giving us until tonight to respond before he publishes. Elena and Carlos watched Jordan's face go pale as he listened to his lawyer. I'll call you back, Jordan said, hanging up. What's wrong? Carlos asked. Jordan sat down heavily. Someone is trying to destroy our story. There's a reporter who claims he has proof that we've been lying about everything. Lying about what? Elena asked. About me not knowing Carlos existed. About this being a surprise reunion. He's claiming I've known about Carlos for years, and we staged last night for publicity. Elena felt anger rising in her chest. That's insane. Why would we do that? I don't know. But if this story gets published, it will make us all look like liars. It will hurt Carlos most of all. Carlos set down his coffee cup. His hands were shaking slightly. What kind of proof could he have? Carlos asked. We're telling the truth. Tabloid reporters are experts at twisting facts. Jordan explained. They take real information and present it in misleading ways. Or sometimes, they just make things up and hope no one can prove them wrong. Elena stood up and started pacing. This is exactly what I was afraid of. This is why I wanted to keep our life private. We can fight this, Jordan said. My lawyers are the best in the business. We'll demand to see this so-called evidence. But even as Jordan spoke, he knew the damage could be done regardless of the truth. In the age of social media, rumors spread faster than facts. People would believe the scandal before they heard the real story. Jordan's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Mr. Jordan, this is Marcus Thompson. I have evidence about your relationship with Elena Vasquez and Carlos Vasquez that contradicts your public statements. Please call me by 6 p.m. today, or I will publish my investigation tomorrow morning. Jordan showed the message to Elena and Carlos. We should call him, Carlos said. Find out what he thinks he knows. No, Jordan said firmly. Never engage with tabloid reporters directly. It only gives them more ammunition. Elena felt sick. 24 hours ago, she had been anonymous. Now she was about to be the center of a media scandal that could destroy her son's reputation before his life with his father even began. Maybe we should have stayed quiet, Elena said. Maybe we should have met privately and kept it secret. No, Carlos said strongly. I'm not ashamed of who I am or where I came from. If someone wants to attack us with lies, we'll fight back with the truth. Jordan felt proud of his son's courage, but also terrified of what they were facing. Marcus Thompson had brought down politicians, movie stars, and business leaders. He was ruthless and clever. "There's something else," Jordan said reluctantly. "My lawyer says Thompson might have financial records. I'm trying to figure out what that could mean." Elena looked confused. "What financial records? We never had any financial relationship." Jordan's mind was racing, trying to think of any connection between him and Elena over the years that could be misinterpreted. Suddenly, Elena gasped. "Oh no. What?" "The gallery. When I moved to New York, I had investors help me open the gallery. I never looked closely at where all the money came from." Jordan stared at Elena. "You think one of your investors was connected to me somehow?" "I don't know. The paperwork went through lawyers and investment firms. But what if someone who knew about us in Barcelona decided to help me secretly? What if they used your money without telling either of us?" Carlos looked back and forth between his parents. "Who would do that?" "I don't know," Elena said. "But if Marcus Thompson found financial connections between Michael and my gallery, he could make it look like Michael was supporting us all along." Jordan felt the trap closing around them. Even if they were innocent, the appearance of financial connections could destroy their credibility. "We need to get ahead of this story," Jordan said. "If we wait for Thompson to publish, we'll be responding to his narrative instead of telling our own. What do you suggest?" Elena asked. "We hold another press conference. Today, we tell the complete truth about everything. Barcelona, the lost letter, Carlos growing up without knowing me. All of it. We get our story out before Thompson can twist it." Carlos nodded. "But first, we need to find out who was behind the gallery investment. If someone used Dad's money without permission, that's fraud, not a conspiracy." Elena was already calling her business manager in New York. "Maria, I need you to pull all the original investment documents for the gallery. Everything. I need to know exactly who put money into our business and where it came from." As Elena talked on the phone, Jordan and Carlos looked at each other. They had found each other after 25 years, only to face the possibility that their reunion could be destroyed by lies and rumors. "Are you ready for this fight?" Jordan asked his son. "Are you?" Carlos replied. Jordan smiled grimly. "I didn't win 6 championships by backing down from challenges. And I didn't become a successful artist by being afraid of criticism." They were interrupted by Elena ending her phone call. Her face was pale. "Maria found something," Elena said. "One of our major investors was a company called Barcelona Holdings. She's looking into who owns it." Jordan felt his heart sink. A company with Barcelona in the name investing in Elena's gallery was exactly the kind of connection that Marcus Thompson would use to destroy their story. "How long until she finds out who owns Barcelona Holdings?" Jordan asked. "A few hours." Jordan looked at his watch. It was 9 in the morning. Thompson's deadline was 6 p.m. They had 9 hours to figure out the truth and decide how to respond. "Whatever we find out," Jordan said, "we face it together. All 3 of us." Elena and Carlos nodded. They had survived 25 years apart. Now they would have to survive their first crisis as a family. The real test of their bond was just beginning. The Ritz-Carlton Chicago conference room. By 11 in the morning, the hotel's conference room had been transformed into a media center. Jordan's team had worked quickly to organize a press conference before Marcus Thompson's story could break. Cameras lined the back wall, and reporters filled every chair. Jordan sat at a long table with Elena on his left and Carlos on his right. The 3 of them looked calm, but Elena's hands were shaking slightly under the table. Carlos kept his sketchbook closed in front of him like a shield. Jordan's lawyer had advised against holding the press conference so quickly. "We don't know what Thompson has," the lawyer had warned. "We could be walking into a trap," but Jordan had made up his mind. "We tell the truth first," he had said. "Let Thompson try to twist that." Elena's business manager had called back with disturbing news about Barcelona Holdings. The company existed, and it had invested in Elena's gallery. But the ownership was hidden behind layers of shell companies and offshore accounts. It would take days or weeks to trace the real source of the money. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jordan began, his voice steady, "thank you for coming on short notice. Yesterday, my family and I shared some wonderful news with the world. Today, we want to share the complete story." The room was completely silent. Even the camera operators stopped moving. 25 years ago in Barcelona, I fell in love with Elena Vasquez. Jordan continued. When I left Spain, Elena discovered she was pregnant. She wrote me a letter, but due to a postal mix-up during my move to a new house, I never received it. Elena leaned toward the microphone. I waited for Michael to respond. When he didn't, I assumed he didn't want to be part of our lives. I made the decision to raise Carlos alone. That decision, Jordan said, was based on a misunderstanding that none of us could have prevented at the time. A reporter from CNN raised her hand. Simabales, Mr. Jordan, there are rumors that you've been beatenly supporting Elena and Carlos financially for years. Can you address that? Jordan had been expecting this question. I learned about Carlos's existence for the first time 3 nights ago, when Elena approached me at the United Center. Before that moment, I had no knowledge that I had another son. But what about the financial connections? Another reporter pressed. Sources say there are investment records linking you to Elena's art gallery. Elena answered this time. My gallery received investments from several sources when I opened it in New York. I'm learning that one of those investors may have connections that we weren't aware of at the time. We're investigating this ourselves. Carlos spoke up for the first time. I want to be clear about something. My mother and I have never received any money directly from my father. We built our lives independently. If someone was secretly helping us without our knowledge, that's news to us too. A young reporter from the Chicago Tribune raised his hand. Carlos, some people are saying this reunion is sexist timing. You're an unknown artist, and suddenly you're the son of the most famous basketball player in the world. Carlos had prepared for this question. I understand why people might be skeptical, but I can show you my artwork from when I was a child. Drawings of basketball players, paintings of absent fathers. I've been searching for my dad my whole life through my art. This isn't about fame or money. This is about family. Carlos opened his sketchbook and held up one of his childhood drawings. The camera zoomed in on the simple picture of a stick figure man and boy playing basketball together. I drew this when I was 7, Carlos said. I didn't know who my father was, but I dreamed about him teaching me to play. That's not something you can fake. The room was quiet as reporters absorbed the emotion in Carlos's voice. Jordan's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it and his face went pale. It was from Marcus Thompson. Holding press conference won't help. I have documents you don't know about. Call me. Jordan showed the message to Elena, who read it and felt her stomach drop. Mr. Jordan, a reporter from ESPN called out. You look like you just received bad news. Is there something you're not telling us? Jordan made a quick decision. Actually, yes. There's a tabloid reporter who claims he has evidence that contradicts our story. He's threatening to publish false information unless we respond to his demands. What kind of evidence? Several reporters asked at once. We don't know yet, Jordan admitted. But we're not going to be blackmailed into changing our story. The truth is what we've told you. Elena took the microphone. I want to say something to the reporter who's trying to hurt my family. We have nothing to hide. If you have questions about our past, ask them publicly. Don't lurk in shadows making threats. The room erupted with questions about Thompson and his supposed evidence. Jordan held up his hand for quiet. We'll answer any legitimate questions from legitimate journalists, Jordan said, but we won't be intimidated by tabloid tactics. A veteran sports reporter from the back of the room raised his hand. Michael, let's say this reporter does have financial records showing connections between you and Elena. How would you explain that? Jordan thought carefully before answering. If such records exist, they would have to be either forged or based on transactions that happened without my knowledge. I can account for every major financial decision I've made in the past 25 years. What about business partners or friends who might have acted on your behalf? The reporter pressed. Jordan felt a chill. It was possible that someone who knew about his time in Barcelona had decided to help Elena secretly. If that was true, it would look like Jordan had been lying about not knowing Carlos. If someone used my money without my permission to help Elena, Jordan said slowly, that would be fraud, not a conspiracy. And it would be news to all 3 of us. Elena's phone rang. She looked at the caller ID and saw it was her business manager calling back. Excuse me, Elena said, stepping away from the table to take the call. The room watched as Elena talked quietly on the phone. Her face grew more worried with each word. When Elena returned to the table, she looked shaken. What did you find out? Jordan asked quietly. Elena leaned into the microphone. My business manager has been digging into the Barcelona Holdings investment. She found something troubling. The room held its breath. Barcelona Holdings is owned by a company called MJ Enterprises, Elena said. And MJ Enterprises has connections to businesses that Michael Jordan is involved with. The room exploded with questions and camera flashes. Jordan looked genuinely shocked. "I've never heard of MJ Enterprises," Jordan said. "And I certainly don't have any connection to Barcelona Holdings." But even as Jordan spoke, he could see the doubt in some reporters' faces. The financial connection was exactly what Marcus Thompson needed to destroy their credibility. Carlos grabbed his father's arm. "Dad, this doesn't change anything. We know the truth. But how do we prove it?" Elena asked, desperately. Jordan's lawyer stepped forward from the back of the room. "We need to end this press conference now. We need time to investigate these financial claims." But Jordan waved his lawyer away. "No, we're not running from this." Jordan stood up and faced the cameras directly. "Someone is trying to make us look like liars. They're using financial records that we don't understand to suggest we've been deceiving you. But I'm going to make you a promise right here, right now." The room was completely silent. "By tonight we will have answers about these financial connections. If I find out that someone used my money without my knowledge, I will expose them publicly. If I find out that someone forged documents to frame us, I will prosecute them. And if I find out that we've missed some detail about our own story, I will admit it honestly." Elena and Carlos stood beside Jordan, showing their unity. "The truth matters more than our reputation," Jordan continued. "We will get to the bottom of this, whatever it takes." A reporter called out, "What if the truth is worse than what you're telling us?" Jordan, look directly into the camera. "Then we'll face it together, as a family. But until someone shows us real evidence of real wrongdoing, we stand by our story." As the press conference ended, Jordan, Elena, and Carlos walked out together. They had defended their truth clippily, but they all knew the real battle was just beginning. Marcus Thompson had something that could destroy them, and they had less than 6 hours to figure out what it is. The Ritz-Carlton, Chicago, Jordan's suite. Back in Jordan's hotel suite, the family worked frantically to solve the mystery of the financial connections. Elena was on the phone with lawyers in New York. Carlos searched the internet for any information about MJ Enterprises. Jordan called his business manager, demanding answers about companies he had never heard of. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. They had 5 hours before Marcus Thompson's deadline. "I found something," Carlos said, looking up from his laptop. "MJ Enterprises was created in 2001, right after you opened your gallery, Mom." Elena ended her phone call and joined Carlos at the computer. "Who created it?" "The records are sealed, but it was incorporated in Delaware. That's where companies go when they want to hide their ownership." Jordan hung up with his business manager and sat down heavily. "My people are saying the same thing. Someone has been very careful to cover their tracks." Elena felt frustrated and scared. "This is insane. Why would someone secretly invest in my gallery and then hide it for 23 years? Maybe they weren't hiding it from the world," Jordan said slowly. "Maybe they were hiding it from us." Carlos looked at his father. "What do you mean? Think about it. Someone who knew about our time in Barcelona, someone who knew Elena was pregnant, someone who wanted to help but couldn't do it openly." Elena's face went pale. "You think it was someone close to you?" "It has to be. Who else would have access to my money and knowledge of our relationship?" Jordan pulled out his phone and started scrolling through his contacts from 1999-2000. His agent, his business partners, his family members, his closest friends. "Wait," Jordan said suddenly. "There's one person who knew everything." "Who?" "My agent at the time, David Chen. He handled all my business deals. He knew about Barcelona because he had to rearrange my schedule when I extended my stay, and he knew I was heartbroken when I came back." Elena remembered Jordan mentioning David in his letters. "Would he have done something like this without telling you?" "David was like a father to me. He worried about everyone in my life. If he thought he was protecting me or helping someone I cared about." Jordan dialed David's number, but it went straight to voicemail. David had retired years ago and lived quietly in California. "He's probably not answering because of all the media attention," Jordan said. Carlos had been quiet, thinking, "Dad, what if this isn't bad news? What if whoever did this was trying to help? How is this helpful?" Elena asked. "It makes us look like liars. But what if we can prove that someone acted without your knowledge?" What if we can show that this person was just trying to take care of Mom and me from a distance? Jordan felt a spark of hope. Carlos is right. If David did this on his own thinking he was helping and we can prove I didn't know about it, then it actually supports our story. Elena's phone rang. It was her business manager again. Maria, what did you find? Elena answered on speakerphone. Good news and bad news, Maria said. The good news is I found more records about Barcelona Holdings. The bad news is there are a lot more connections than we thought. What kind of connections? Jordan asked. Payments to Carlos's art school. Money for Elena's apartment rent in New York. Even payments to hospitals when Carlos was born. Someone has been helping your family for 24 years. Elena felt dizzy. 24 years? But that means, it means someone knew about Carlos from the beginning. Jordan finished. Someone knew Elena was pregnant and decided to help her raise our son. Carlos stared at his parents. Someone has been like a secret guardian angel for my whole life? Jordan's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. But this time it wasn't from Marcus Thompson. Michael, this is David Chen. I've been watching the news. We need to talk. I'm flying to Chicago right now. Meet me at O'Hare Airport at 4 p.m. Terminal 3, Gate B12. Come alone. Jordan showed the message to Elena and Carlos. He's coming here, Elena said. He must know something. Should you go alone? Carlos asked. What if it's a trap? David's not the enemy, Jordan said. If he's involved in this, he was trying to help. But I need to hear it from him. Jordan looked at his watch. It was 2:30. He had 90 minutes to get to the airport and meet David. I'm coming with you, Elena said. Me too, Carlos added. No, Jordan said firmly. If David wanted to meet all of us, he would have said so. This is something between him and me first. Elena didn't like it, but she understood. Promise you'll call us the minute you know anything. I promise. Jordan kissed Elena's cheek and hugged Carlos. Whatever David tells me, we'll figure out how to handle it together. O'Hare Airport, Terminal. Jordan arrived at Gate B12 20 minutes early. The airport was busy with afternoon travelers, but Jordan found a quiet corner where he could wait without being recognized by too many people. At exactly 4 o'clock, David Chen walked through the gate. He was 71 years old now, with white hair and a tired face, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. Michael, David said, embracing Jordan like the father figure he had always been. David, what's going on? What do you know about Barcelona Holdings? David looked around the busy terminal. Not here, there's a private lounge upstairs. We can talk freely there. They took the elevator to the airline's VIP lounge. David showed his platinum member card, and they were given a private room overlooking the runways. David, Jordan said as soon as they were alone, I need to know the truth. Did you create Barcelona Holdings? David sat down heavily and nodded. Yes, I created it to help Elena and Carlos. Jordan felt relief and anger at the same time. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were a mess when you came back from Spain. Your marriage was falling apart. The media was following your every move. You were trying to come back to basketball while dealing with a divorce. But you knew Elena was pregnant? I hired a private investigator to check on her after you got back. You were so heartbroken, I thought maybe you had left something unfinished in Barcelona. When I found out about the baby, I had a choice to make. Jordan stared at his old friend. You made a choice about my life without telling me. I made a choice about a child's life, David said firmly. Elena was alone and pregnant in a foreign country. She was trying to build a new life in New York. That baby needed help, whether you knew about him or not. For 24 years? You've been secretly supporting them for 24 years? David nodded. Art school, medical bills, rent help when Elena's gallery was struggling. I set up Barcelona Holdings, so the money couldn't be traced back to you. Jordan felt overwhelmed. Elena never knew the money came from me. She thought it came from private investors who believed in her work, which was partly true. I did believe in her work, but I also knew she was raising your son. Jordan stood up and walked to the window. Planes were taking off and landing, carrying people to new destinations. He wished he could fly away from this complicated situation. David, do you understand what you've done? There's a reporter who thinks we've been lying about everything. He has these financial records, and now it looks like I've known about Carlos all along. I know, I saw the press conference. That's why I flew here immediately. David pulled out a thick folder of documents. These are copies of everything. Every payment, every decision, every piece of correspondence. It will prove that you knew nothing about any of this. Jordan opened the folder and saw 24 years of careful record-keeping. Bank transfers, investment documents, reports from investigators tracking Elena and Carlos's well-being. All of it done without Jordan's knowledge. Why now? Jordan asked. Why are you telling me this now? Because you found each other again. Because that little boy I've been watching from a distance is now a man who deserves to know his father. And because some tabloid reporter is trying to destroy the beautiful reunion I've been hoping for since Carlos was born. Jordan felt tears in his eyes. You've been watching over my son his whole life. Someone had to, and I knew that if you ever found out about him, you'd want to know that he had been taken care of. Jordan hugged David tightly. Thank you. Thank you for protecting them when I couldn't. Now we need to protect all of you from this reporter, David said. I have an idea. Back at the hotel, Jordan returned to the hotel suite at 5:30, just 30 minutes before Marcus Thompson's deadline. Elena and Carlos were pacing nervously. What did you find out? Elena asked immediately. Jordan sat them down and explained everything David had told him. Elena cried when she learned that someone had been secretly watching over them all these years. Carlos felt amazed that he'd had a guardian angel he never knew about. So the money did come from Dad, Carlos said, but Dad didn't know about it. Exactly. David was trying to make sure you were taken care of, just in case we never found each other. Elena felt a mix of gratitude and frustration. I wish I had known. I could have thanked him. I could have let him know how much it helped. There's more, Jordan said. David has a plan for dealing with Marcus Thompson. Jordan explained David's idea. Instead of fighting Thompson's story, they would get ahead of it by revealing the truth about David's secret support themselves. We call another press conference tonight, Jordan said. We bring David with us. We show all the documents. We prove that while there were financial connections, they happened without my knowledge and were motivated by love, not deception. Carlos liked the plan. It turns the story from Michael Jordan lied to Michael Jordan's friend secretly helped his unknown son for 24 years. That's actually a beautiful story. Elena nodded. And it explains everything honestly. No more secrets, no more mysteries. Jordan's phone rang. It was Marcus Thompson, calling right at his 6 o'clock deadline. Jordan looked at Elena and Carlos, then answered the phone on speaker. Mr. Thompson. Mr. Jordan. Have you decided to comment on my investigation? Yes, I have. We're holding a press conference tonight at 8 o'clock. You're welcome to attend. We'll be revealing the full truth about the financial connections you've discovered. Thompson sounded surprised. You're admitting the connections exist? I'm admitting that the situation is more complicated than any of us realized. But we're not afraid of the truth, Mr. Thompson. Are you? After hanging up, Jordan, Elena, and Carlos spent the next 2 hours preparing for the press conference that would finally put all the secrets to rest. The truth was more beautiful than any of them had imagined. The Ritz-Carlton Chicago conference room. The conference room was packed even tighter than it had been that morning. Word had spread that Jordan would reveal the truth about the financial connections. Every major news network was represented, and even Marcus Thompson sat in the back row, his notebook ready. Jordan sat at the front table with Elena, Carlos, and David Chen. David looked nervous but determined. In front of him sat a stack of documents that told the story of 24 years of secret care. Ladies and gentlemen, Jordan began. This morning, we promised you the truth about the financial connections that have been discovered. Tonight, we're here to deliver on that promise. Jordan gestured toward David. This is David Chen, my former business manager and agent. David, would you please tell everyone what you did? David leaned toward the microphone, his voice shaky at first but growing stronger as he spoke. In 1999, I watched Michael return from Barcelona completely heartbroken. He wouldn't tell me exactly what had happened, but I could see that he had fallen in love and lost it. As his agent and friend, I was worried about him. The room was completely silent. I hired a private investigator to check on the woman Michael had met in Barcelona. Not to interfere, but to understand what had happened. That's when I discovered Elena was pregnant. Elena reached over and squeezed David's hand, encouraging him to continue. I faced a choice, David said. I could tell Michael he was going to be a father, which would have complicated his already difficult divorce and comeback attempt. Or I could find a way to help Elena and the baby without Michael knowing, at least until his life stabilized. David opened the folder in front of him. I chose to help secretly. I created Barcelona Holdings and used it to provide support for Elena's gallery, Carlos's education, and medical expenses. Every payment was designed to look like legitimate business investments. A reporter raised her hand. Mr. Chen, why didn't you tell Michael about this? Because Michael was struggling with his own family situation. His marriage was ending badly. The media was attacking him constantly. I thought if I could just help Elena and Carlos quietly, maybe someday when things were calmer, Michael could be part of their lives. Carlos spoke up. Mr. Chen, I want to thank you. You helped pay for my art education, didn't you? David nodded, tears in his eyes. You were so talented, even as a little boy. Elena would send updates through the gallery's business manager. I saw your artwork, your school reports, your achievements. I felt like a proud grandfather watching from far away. Elena leaned into the microphone. I want everyone to understand something. I never knew this money came from Michael. I thought I had legitimate investors who believed in my work. David made sure it looked completely professional. Jordan held up one of David's documents. These records show 24 years of payments. Art supplies, school tuition, medical bills, rent assistance during slow periods at the gallery. All of it done without my knowledge. But all of it motivated by love. Marcus Thompson raised his hand from the back of the room. Mr. Jordan, how do we know you're telling the truth? How do we know you didn't know about this all along? Jordan had expected this question. Mr. Thompson, you've been investigating this story for days. In all your research, have you found a single phone call, email, or meeting between me and David about Elena or Carlos in the past 24 years? Thompson looked uncomfortable. Well, no. But have you found any evidence that I ever asked David to make these payments? No, but you could have discussed it in person. David interrupted. Mr. Thompson, I have phone records, email archives, and meeting logs going back 25 years. If Michael had known about any of this, there would be evidence. The reason you can't find any is because there isn't any. Elena stood up. Mr. Thompson, you've been trying to turn a beautiful reunion into a scandal. Why? What do you gain from hurting my family? Thompson seemed taken aback by Elena's direct question. I'm a journalist. I investigate stories that don't add up. But this story does add up, Carlos said. A man fell in love with a woman. They were separated by misunderstanding. Their friend secretly helped their child for 24 years. Now they found each other again. Where's the scandal in that? Jordan, look directly at the cameras. David Chen spent 24 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars protecting my son and the woman I loved, even though I didn't know they needed protecting. That's not a scandal. That's one of the most beautiful acts of friendship I've ever heard of. David wiped his eyes. I just wanted to make sure that if you ever found each other, Carlos would have had every opportunity to become the man he was meant to be. The room was completely quiet except for the sound of cameras clicking. A reporter from CNN raised her hand. What happens now? How do you move forward as a family? Jordan looked at Elena and Carlos. We start where we are. Carlos has an art show in New York next month. I'll be there. Elena has a gallery to run. I want to learn about that world. We have 24 years to catch up on. Will you be getting married? Another reporter asked. Elena and Jordan looked at each other and smiled. We're not the same people we were 25 years ago, Elena said. We need to get to know each other again as the people we've become. But we love each other, Jordan added. We never stopped loving each other. The rest we'll figure out as we go. Carlos opened his sketchbook. I want to show everyone something I drew today. He held up a sketch of 4 people sitting around a table. Jordan, Elena, Carlos, and David. They were all laughing, and above them, he had drawn the words, "Family is bigger than blood." This is my family now, Carlos said. All of them. And I'm grateful for every person who helped me get to this moment. As the press conference ended, Marcus Thompson approached the family. I owe you an apology, Thompson said quietly. I was so focused on finding a scandal that I almost missed a beautiful story. Jordan shook Thompson's hand. Sometimes the truth is better than any story we could make up. 3 hours later, the hotel suite. The four of them sat in Jordan's suite, finally able to relax after months of secrets and days of media storms. David had agreed to stay in Chicago for a few more days to help them plan their future as a family. "David," Elena said, "I need to ask you something. How did you know Carlos was doing well all these years? How did you know the money was helping?" David smiled. "I may have visited New York a few times. I may have attended some of Carlos's art shows, staying in the back where you wouldn't notice me." Carlos looked amazed. "You were at my art shows. Your first show when you were 16. Your gallery opening when you turned 21. Your award ceremony last year. I bought paintings under fake names and donated them to museums." Elena started crying. "You've been watching over us like a guardian angel." "I've been watching over Michael's family," David said simply, "because I knew that someday, this day would come." Jordan looked around at his expanded family. "So what happens now?" "Now we build the life we should have had," Elena said. Just 24 years late, Carlos was already sketching again. This time he drew a family tree. But instead of a traditional tree, it looked like a work of art. Beautiful, complex, and full of unexpected connections. "I'm going to paint this," Carlos said. "Our family story. But not as something sad about what we lost. As something beautiful about what we found." Jordan watched his son draw and felt complete for the first time in 25 years. He had thought his greatest achievement was winning 6 NBA championships. But this, finding his family, watching them love each other, seeing the beautiful man his son had become, this was his real legacy. "I love you all," Jordan said simply. "We love you too, Dad," Carlos replied. And for the first time, Jordan truly understood what it meant to win the game that mattered most. New York City. 6 weeks later, the Galeria Nueva in Soho was packed with art lovers, reporters, and curious fans. Tonight was Carlos Vázquez's biggest art show ever, a collection called The Long Way Home. Every painting told part of his family's story, but done with such artistic skill that people who knew nothing about basketball or Michael Jordan could still feel the emotions. Jordan stood in front of the centerpiece painting, transfixed. It showed a man, woman, and young man standing together on a basketball court, but the court was covered with flowers instead of hardwood. The three figures were reaching toward each other across time, their hands almost touching. "It's beautiful," Elena said, joining Jordan in front of the painting. "He painted our whole story," Jordan said in wonder. "The sadness, the hope, the love we never lost." Elena wore a simple black dress and the same silver bracelet Jordan had bought her in Barcelona 25 years ago. She looked nervous, but proud as she watched their son talk to collectors and art critics. "Are you okay?" Jordan asked, noticing Elena's pale complexion. "Just tired," Elena said. "It's been a busy few weeks getting ready for this show." But Elena was more than tired. For the past month, she had been keeping another secret, one that would change their lives again. She had planned to tell Jordan and Carlos after the art show, but her doctor's call that afternoon had made waiting impossible. "Michael," Elena said quietly, "can we step outside for a moment? I need to tell you something." Jordan felt a familiar chill. Elena's serious tone reminded him of that night at the United Center when she had appeared with so many secrets. They walked out to the quiet street in front of the gallery. The spring evening was warm, and people strolled past the art galleries and restaurants of Soho. "What's wrong?" Jordan asked. Elena took a deep breath. "Remember when I told you why I came to Chicago that night? Why I decided it was time for you to know about Carlos? You said it was because Carlos had found out about me and wanted to meet me. That was true. But it wasn't the whole truth." Jordan felt his stomach drop. "What else?" Elena looked down at her hands. "I've been sick, Michael. I was diagnosed with breast cancer 3 months ago." The words hit Jordan like a physical blow. He grabbed Elena's arms. "What? How sick? What stage? Are you getting treatment?" "I'm getting excellent treatment. The doctors are optimistic. But when I first got the diagnosis, I realized that Carlos deserved to know his father while I was still here to help them connect." Jordan felt tears in his eyes. "Elena, why didn't you tell me this 6 weeks ago?" "Because I didn't want our reunion to be about my illness. I wanted it to be about love and family. I wanted you and Carlos to bond, because you chose to, not because you felt sorry for me. Jordan pulled Elena into a tight hug. Are you gonna be okay? The surgery went well. I start chemotherapy next week. My doctors say I have an excellent chance of full recovery. Surgery? When did you have surgery? 2 weeks ago, while you were in Charlotte meeting with your business partners. I told Carlos it was just routine medical tests. Jordan felt angry and scared. Elena, you can't go through this alone. We're a family now. We face things together. I know. That's why I'm telling you now. I need your help, Michael. I need both of you. Jordan held Elena's face in his hands. You'll have our help. Whatever you need. The best doctors, the best treatment, whatever it takes. I already have good doctors. What I need is for my family to be strong while I fight this. They stood on the sidewalk holding each other while people walked past them into the gallery. Inside, Carlos was probably wondering where his parents had gone. Does Carlos know? Jordan asked. I'm telling him tonight after the show. I didn't want to ruin his big moment. Jordan thought about Carlos in there, celebrating his art show, not knowing that his mother was fighting for her life. Elena, we have to tell him now. He'll be devastated if he finds out we kept this from him. But it's his night. His dream come true. And we're his family. He'll want to be there for you. Just like you've always been there for him. Elena knew Jordan was right. Carlos had a right to know immediately. They walked back into the gallery together. Carlos was standing near his paintings, talking animatedly with an art collector about his techniques. When he saw his parents return, he smiled and waved them over. Mom, Dad, come meet Mrs. Richardson. She wants to buy 3 of my paintings for her museum in Los Angeles. Jordan and Elena smiled and shook hands with Mrs. Richardson, but Carlos could tell something was wrong. Is everything okay? Carlos asked quietly. Elena looked around the crowded gallery. Can we go somewhere private for a minute? Carlos led them to a small office in the back of the gallery. Elena closed the door and sat down in a chair. Jordan stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder. Carlos, Elena began. I need to tell you something important. Carlos felt his heart rate increase. His mother's serious tone scared him. What is it? I have cancer, sweetheart. Breast cancer. I've been getting treatment, and the doctors say my prognosis is very good. Carlos stared at his mother in shock. Cancer? For how long? I was diagnosed 3 months ago. I've already had surgery, and I start chemotherapy next week. Carlos sat down heavily. That's why you went to Chicago. That's why you decided to tell Dad about me. Elena nodded. I wanted to make sure you had each other if anything happened to me. Carlos looked back and forth between his parents. Are you going to be okay? Yes. Elena said firmly. I'm going to fight this and win. But I need my family with me. Carlos reached for his mother's hand. Of course. Whatever you need. I'll take care of you. We'll take care of her, Jordan corrected. Together. Carlos felt overwhelmed. His art show, which had been the best night of his life 5 minutes ago, suddenly seemed unimportant. Should we cancel the show? Should we go to the hospital? No, Elena said. Tonight is about celebrating your talent and your dreams. Tomorrow, we start dealing with my treatment. But tonight, I want to enjoy watching my son succeed. Jordan admired Elena's strength. Even facing cancer, she was more worried about Carlos's happiness than her own health. Are you sure? Carlos asked. I'm sure. But there's one thing I want. Anything. Elena smiled. I want you to paint me. During my treatment. I want a record of this time. Of our family fighting together and winning together. Carlos nodded, tears in his eyes. I'll paint you as the strongest woman I know. They returned to the gallery together. Carlos was quieter now, but he continued talking to collectors and art lovers. Jordan and Elena watched him with pride as he sold painting after painting. Near the end of the evening, a young girl approached Carlos with a sketchbook. Excuse me, the girl said shyly. My dad says you're Michael Jordan's son. Can you sign my drawing? Carlos looked at the girl's sketch. She had drawn a family, a mom, dad, and little Rural, playing together in a park. That's a beautiful drawing, Carlos said. What's your name? Sophie. I drew my family. Carlos signed the girl's sketchbook and handed it back to her. Always keep drawing, Sophie. Art helps us understand the world. As Sophie walked away with her parents, Jordan realized something important. Carlos was already famous now, not just as Michael Jordan's son, but as a talented artist in his own right. People were starting to recognize him on the street. "How does it feel?" Jordan asked Carlos as the gallery started to empty out. "Different than I expected." "Good, but complicated. Fame usually is." Carlos looked around the gallery at his paintings. "I keep thinking about what David said, that he watched over us so I could have every opportunity to become who I was meant to be. Tonight feels like proof that his plan worked." Elena joined them in front of the centerpiece painting. "I have something to tell you both," she said. Jordan and Carlos looked at her nervously, worried about more medical news. The art critic from the New York Times wants to feature Carlos on the cover of their Sunday art section. The headline is going to be "Finding His Father Through Art." Carlos looked amazed. "The New York Times? Your story is inspiring people," Elena said. "Not just the famous father part, but the part about never giving up hope, about finding family when you need it most." Jordan felt proud of his son's success, but also worried about the pressure that would come with more fame. "Carlos, remember what I told you about privacy. Once you're really famous, you can't go back to being anonymous." "I know, Dad. But I also know that my story might help other kids who are growing up without knowing their fathers. Maybe it will give them hope." Elena looked at her two men, her son, brave and talented and kind, and the love of her life, who had proven that some bonds are stronger than time. "I want to say something," Elena announced. "To both of you." Jordan and Carlos turned to face her. 25 years ago, I thought my story was about a love that ended too soon. Tonight I realized it was actually about a love that was strong enough to find its way home." Elena reached into her purse and pulled out the old photograph from Barcelona, the one that had started everything at the United Center 6 weeks ago. "I don't need this anymore," she said, handing the photo to Carlos. "Our new memories are better than our old ones." Carlos looked at the photo of his young parents, then at his parents today. They looked older, but their eyes held the same love. "I'm going to frame this next to my newest painting," Carlos said, the one called Family Found. As they prepared to leave the gallery, Elena felt a wave of dizziness. Jordan caught her arm. "You okay? Just tired." It's been a big day. But Elena wasn't just tired. The cancer treatment was harder than she had told them. She would need them more than they knew. For tonight, though, she wanted to hold on to this perfect moment, her son's art show, surrounded by the family she had dreamed of for 25 years. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, they were together. And that was enough. Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, New York City. 3 months later, Elena sat in the chemotherapy chair, a sketch pad on her lap. Her hair was gone now, covered by a colorful scarf that Carlos had bought her. But her eyes were as bright as ever as she watched Jordan try to draw her portrait. "Dad, you're holding the pencil like a basketball." Carlos laughed from his easel nearby. "Relax your grip." Jordan looked at his awful attempt at drawing Elena and shook his head. "I don't know how you make this look so easy." 30 years of practice, Carlos said. "You didn't become great at basketball overnight either." Elena smiled as she watched her two men argue about art techniques. For the past 3 months, they had taken turns staying with her during treatment. Jordan had moved temporarily to New York, renting an apartment near Elena's so he could be close during her chemotherapy. "How are you feeling today, Mom?" Carlos asked, adding gentle shading to his latest portrait of Elena. "Strong," Elena said honestly. "Tired, but strong." Elena's treatment was going well. The cancer was responding to chemotherapy, and her doctors were optimistic about her recovery. But the process was exhausting, and there had been difficult days when Elena wondered if she would have the strength to keep fighting. On those days, Jordan and Carlos had been her anchors. "I brought you something," Jordan said, pulling a newspaper from his bag. "The Chicago Tribune wants to do a feature story about our family. They're calling it Love Finds a Way." Elena looked at the newspaper. The front page of the sports section showed a photo of the three of them at Carlos's art show, laughing together. "Do we want more publicity?" Elena asked. "That's up to you," Jordan said. "But the reporter wants to focus on how we're handling your treatment as a family. She thinks it might inspire other families going through cancer." Carlos looked up from his painting. "I think we should do it. Our story started with secrets and fear. Maybe now it can help other people who are scared." Elena had been thinking the same thing. Over the past few months, she had received letters from women facing cancer, from single mothers raising children alone, from families separated by misunderstandings. Their story had touched people around the world. Okay, Elena said, but I want to be honest about everything. The hard parts too. The hard parts? Jordan asked. Like how scared I was when I first got diagnosed. How I almost didn't tell you because I didn't want to burden our new relationship. How some days the treatment makes me so sick I can barely get out of bed. Carlos set down his paintbrush. You never told us about the really sick days. Because I didn't want you to worry more than you already were. Jordan reached for Elena's hand. We're supposed to worry about each other. That's what families do. Elena squeezed Jordan's hand. I'm still learning how to be part of a family again. For 24 years, it was just Carlos and me. I got used to handling everything alone. Well, those days are over, Jordan said firmly. From now on, we handle everything together. Elena's oncologist, Dr. Sarah Martinez, came into the treatment room to check on her progress. How are we doing today, Elena? Dr. Martinez asked, checking Elena's IV. Good. Ready to get this treatment finished so I can go see Carlos's new painting. Dr. Martinez smiled. She had gotten to know the family well over the past 3 months. Carlos, are you still painting your mother's treatment journey? Every week, Carlos said, showing Dr. Martinez his latest work. I want to capture how beautiful she is, even during the hardest parts. Dr. Martinez looked at the painting and was amazed. Carlos had painted Elena in the chemotherapy chair, but surrounded by light and flowers, she looked like a warrior queen fighting a battle she was determined to win. This is incredible, Dr. Martinez said. You've captured her strength perfectly. Elena looked at Carlos's painting and felt tears in her eyes. Is that really how you see me? That's exactly how I see you, Carlos said. As the strongest person I know. Jordan looked at the painting too. Carlos had inherited Jordan's competitive spirit, but he expressed it through art instead of sports. Watching his son document Elena's cancer journey with such love and skill made Jordan incredibly proud. Dr. Martinez, Jordan asked, how much longer will Elena need treatment? If her progress continues like this, we should be finished with chemotherapy in about 6 weeks. Then we'll do regular checkups to make sure the cancer doesn't return. Elena felt relief wash over her. 6 more weeks. She could handle 6 more weeks. And then what? Elena asked. Then you get back to living your life, Dr. Martinez said. Travel, work, family time, whatever makes you happy. Elena looked at Jordan and Carlos. I know exactly what will make me happy. Elena's apartment that evening. Elena's apartment had been transformed over the past 3 months. Jordan had moved in to help take care of her, and Carlos visited every day. The walls were covered with Carlos's paintings documenting Elena's treatment, Jordan's improving sketch attempts, and photographs of their growing family. David Chen had also become a regular visitor, helping with grocery shopping and cooking meals that Elena could keep down during treatment. Tonight, all 4 of them sat around Elena's kitchen table, sharing Chinese takeout and talking about the future. I've been thinking, Elena said, about what I want to do when treatment is finished. What? Jordan asked. I want to travel. I want to see places I've never been. I want Carlos to show me his favorite spots in New York. I want to visit Jordan's other children in Charlotte. I want to go back to Barcelona. Jordan smiled. Barcelona? I want to see our old places again. But this time, I want to see them with both of you. Carlos liked this idea. I could paint the places where you and Dad fell in love. And I could show Carlos where I bought your mother's bracelet. Jordan added. David looked around the table at the family he had helped protect for so many years. Can an old friend come along on this trip? You're not just a friend, Elena said. You're family. Of course you're coming. Elena's phone rang. She looked at the caller ID and saw it was Jeffrey, Jordan's oldest son. Hi, Jeffrey. Elena answered on speakerphone. Elena, how are you feeling? Dad told me you had treatment today. I'm doing well, getting stronger every day. Good, I wanted to ask you something. Jasmine and Marcus and I have been talking. We want to do something special for you when your treatment is finished. What kind of something? We want to throw you a party. A celebration of beating cancer and becoming part of our family. Would that be okay? Elena felt overwhelmed by the kindness of Jordan's children. They had accepted her and Carlos immediately, treating them like family from the very first meeting. That would be wonderful. Elena said. Carlos, are you there? Jeffrey asked. I'm here. We want you to paint something special for the party. A family portrait of all of us together. Can you do that? Carlos smiled. I would love to. After the phone call ended, Elena looked around the table at her family. 6 months ago, she had been alone with her secret about Carlos and her cancer diagnosis. Tonight, she was surrounded by people who loved her unconditionally. I need to tell you all something, Elena said. Jordan, Carlos, and David looked at her with concern, worried about more medical news. What is it? Jordan asked. I'm happy, Elena said simply. For the first time in 25 years, I'm completely happy. Even with the cancer, even with all the challenges, I'm exactly where I want to be. Carlos reached across the table and took his mother's hand. We're happy too, Mom. Jordan took Elena's other hand. Happier than I've ever been in my life. David smiled at the family he had spent 24 years bringing together. This is why I did everything I did. To see this moment. Elena looked around the table at the 3 men who had changed her life. Carlos, the son who had grown into an amazing young man despite not knowing his father. Jordan, the love of her life, who had proven that some connections are stronger than time. David, the guardian angel who had protected them all without asking for anything in return. I want to make a promise to all of you, Elena said. I'm going to beat this cancer. I'm going to get well. And then we're going to have the most beautiful life together. Promise? Carlos asked, like he had when he was a little boy asking for reassurance. Promise, Elena said firmly. Jordan raised his glass of water. To family. To second chances. To love that finds its way home. They all raised their glasses and toasted to their future together. Outside Elena's window, New York City sparkled with millions of lights. Each light represented someone's life, someone's dreams, someone's hope for tomorrow. Inside the apartment, 4 people who had found each other against all odds were planning the rest of their lives together. They had faced secrets, illness, media scrutiny, and the challenge of building relationships that had been delayed by 25 years. But they had also discovered that love really can conquer anything, that families can be created at any age, that sometimes the most beautiful stories begin with the words, I need to tell you something. Elena looked at her silver bracelet, the one Jordan had bought her in Barcelona so long ago. She had worn it every day for 25 years, a reminder of a love she thought she had lost forever. Now she knew the truth. Love like theirs doesn't get lost. It just takes the long way home. Tomorrow would bring the final weeks of treatment, more challenges, and the work of building their life together. But tonight, sitting around the kitchen table with her family, Elena felt like she had already won the most important battle of her life. She had found her way home. United Center, Chicago. 1 year later, the arena was packed with 21,000 fans, but this time they weren't just here for basketball. Tonight was Jordan Family Night, a special event where Carlos's artwork was being displayed around the concourse, and Elena was being honored as a cancer survivor and advocate. Elena sat in the same courtside seat where Jordan had been sitting that night 1 year ago, when she had walked down the aisle to change their lives forever. Her hair had grown back, silver-streaked, and beautiful. She wore a simple blue dress and her silver bracelet, looking healthy and radiant. Carlos sat beside her, sketching the pre-game warm-ups. He was working on a new series called Full Circle, paintings that showed how their family's story had come complete. Tonight's sketch would become the final piece in the collection. Jordan was on the court, not playing but being honored at halftime for his contributions to basketball and family advocacy. Over the past year, he had become a spokesman for cancer research and family reunification services. Look at this crowd, Elena said to Carlos. A year ago, I was terrified to walk down those steps. Tonight, I feel like I belong here. Carlos smiled. You do belong here. This is your house too now. Elena looked around the arena where her life had changed forever. The walls were covered with banners celebrating championship teams, but tonight they also displayed Carlos's paintings telling their family story. Fans walked through the concourse looking at art that showed love, loss, and redemption. There's something I want to tell you, Elena said to Carlos. Good news or bad news? Carlos asked, looking up from his sketch. The best news, Elena said. her eyes shining. "I got my test results back yesterday. The doctors say I'm officially in complete remission. The cancer is gone." Carlos dropped his sketchbook and hugged his mother tightly. "Mom, that's incredible. Does Dad know?" "Not yet. I wanted to tell you first, then we'll tell him together after the ceremony." Around them, fans were taking their seats and buying programs that featured Carlos's artwork on the cover. The program told their entire story: the reunion, the cancer battle, the family they had built together. Elena's phone buzzed with a text from David, who was sitting in a luxury box with Jordan's other children. "Everything looks beautiful. So proud of this family." Jasmine, Marcus, and Jeffrey had embraced Elena and Carlos completely. They visited New York regularly, attended Carlos's art shows, and had become the siblings Carlos had never known he wanted. "Ladies and gentlemen," the arena announcer's voice boomed over the speakers, "please welcome the Jordan family for tonight's halftime ceremony." Elena and Carlos walked onto the court together. Jordan was already there, wearing a suit and his biggest smile. When he saw Elena and Carlos approaching, he felt the same joy he had experienced every day for the past year. The crowd gave them a standing ovation. Elena waved, still amazed that people cared so much about their story. "Before we begin tonight's ceremony," Jordan said into the microphone, "my family has an announcement to make." Elena stepped forward. "Exactly 1 year ago, I walked into this arena carrying secrets about cancer and family. Tonight, I'm here to tell you that I am cancer-free and surrounded by more love than I ever dreamed possible." The crowd erupted in cheers. Elena felt tears of joy as 21,000 people celebrated her recovery. Carlos took the microphone next. "My mother taught me that love is stronger than fear, that family is worth fighting for, and that sometimes the most beautiful art comes from the hardest experiences." He gestured toward the arena walls where his paintings were displayed. "Tonight, my art collection Full Circle goes on permanent display here at the United Center. These paintings tell the story of how a lost letter led to a found family." Jordan stepped forward for his part of the ceremony. "Family isn't just about blood. It's about choice. It's about showing up for each other. It's about love that refuses to give up." He looked directly at Elena. "Elena Vasquez, you gave me the greatest gift of my life. Our son Carlos. You raised him to be kind, talented, and strong. You fought cancer with courage that inspired everyone who knows you." Jordan got down on one knee in front of 21. Elena gasped. She hadn't expected this. "Elena, will you marry me?" Jordan asked, pulling out a ring. "Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that some love stories have the most beautiful endings?" Elena stared at Jordan kneeling in front of her in the same arena where they had found each other again. The crowd was completely silent, waiting for her answer. "Yes," Elena said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I'll marry you." The arena exploded with the loudest cheer in United Center history. Carlos hugged both his parents as fans cheered and cameras flashed. Jordan slipped the ring onto Elena's finger. It was perfect, simple and elegant, just like the silver bracelet he had bought her 25 years ago. "I love you," Jordan whispered to Elena as the crowd continued cheering. "I love you too," Elena replied. "I never stopped loving you." Carlos wiped his eyes and picked up his sketchbook. Even in this emotional moment, he was capturing the scene. This would be the final painting in his Full Circle collection. As they waved to the crowd and walked off the court, Elena felt like she was living in a dream. 1 year ago, she had been a single mother facing cancer alone. Tonight, she was engaged to the love of her life, cancer-free, and surrounded by a family that loved her unconditionally. The Ritz-Carlton Chicago private celebration. After the ceremony, the family gathered in the same hotel suite where Jordan, Elena, and Carlos had first talked as a family 1 year ago. This time, all of Jordan's children were there, plus David, Elena's business partner Maria, and several close friends. Jeffrey raised his glass. To Elena and Dad. To second chances and first loves. Everyone toasted and Elena felt overwhelmed by how much her family had grown. "Speech. Speech." Jasmine called out. Elena stood up, still wearing her engagement ring and the silver bracelet that had survived 25 years of separation. "A year ago, I thought I was just reuniting a father and son. I didn't know I was actually bringing together a whole family." She looked around the room at all the faces that had become dear to her. "Jeffrey, Marcus and Jasmine. You welcomed Carlos and me like we had always been part of your lives. David. You protected us for 24 years without asking for anything in return. Maria. You've been my rock through everything. Elena turned to Carlos. And Carlos, my beautiful son, you gave me the courage to face my biggest fears, cancer, love, and the possibility of losing everything I cared about. Finally, she looked at Jordan. Michael, you taught me that real love doesn't end just because circumstances get complicated. It waits, it hopes, it finds a way home. Elena raised her glass. To all of you. To the family we were meant to be. As everyone drank and talked and laughed, Carlos quietly sketched the scene. His family, all together, celebrating love and life and second chances. David sat down next to Carlos. What are you gonna call this painting? Carlos thought for a moment. Home, he said simply. Perfect, David said. Because that's what this is. Home. Elena stepped onto the balcony for some air. The Chicago skyline sparkled below her, just like it had 1 year ago when she had been so nervous about seeing Jordan again. Jordan joined her on the balcony. Any regrets about saying yes? Elena laughed. Are you kidding? I've been waiting 25 years to say yes to you. They stood together looking out at the city where their love story had found its happy ending. When should we get married? Jordan asked. Soon, Elena said. We've waited long enough. Barcelona. Jordan suggested. We could get married where we fell in love. Elena smiled. That's perfect. Carlos can paint the ceremony, and we can start our new life where our old life began. Carlos appeared on the balcony carrying his sketchbook. Are you two planning a wedding out here? How did you know? Elena asked. Because Dad has had that ring for 3 months. He kept asking me what kind of proposal you would want. Jordan looked embarrassed. You knew? Dad, you're not as sneaky as you think you are. Carlos laughed. But the proposal was perfect. Mom cried. Which means you did it right. Elena hugged both her men. I love you both so much. We love you too, Jordan and Carlos said at the same time. As they stood together on the balcony, Elena thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. Cancer, secrets, lost letters, and 25 years of wondering what if. But now she knew that some stories don't end, they just find new beginnings. Tomorrow they would start planning a wedding. Next month they would travel to Barcelona as a family. Next year, Carlos would have his first international art exhibition. And someday, maybe there would be grandchildren who would hear the story of how love found its way home. Elena looked at her engagement rings sparkling next to her silver bracelet. 2 symbols of the same love, 25 years apart. But exactly where they belong. Ready to go back inside? Jordan asked. Ready, Elena said, taking his hand. Together, the 3 of them walked back into the celebration, back to their family, back to the life they had built from love, hope, and the courage to believe in second chances. The little girl who had grown up dreaming of fairy tales had finally found her happily ever after, and it was even more beautiful than she had imagined. Because real love doesn't just happen once. It keeps happening every day for the rest of your life. Elena Vasquez was finally completely perfectly home. That was the end of this incredible story of love, family, and second chances. Michael Jordan and Elena's journey from heartbreak to healing shows us that it's never too late to find your way home. Where are you listening from today? Drop a comment and let us know. If this story touched your heart, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like this one. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and family, because stories like these remind us that love really can conquer all, and sometimes spreading a little hope and kindness is exactly what someone needs to hear today. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next story.